Sabaody Archipelago, Outlaw Zone. Rayleigh was standing in front of the port at this time, with Doflamingo and a group of people beside him. Finally, this business of yours is finished. Rayleigh took out his own small flagon from his waist, and took a sip. You wouldn't be drinking while filming me, would you? Doflamingo looked at Rayleigh suspiciously and said. Stupid. Rayleigh glared at Doflamingo, and then said, the top coater can only appear in a slightly drunk state, understand? Doflamingo looked at the middle-aged man who was already showing signs of being an alcoholic, and looked at the coating on his boat, and finally felt that he had no grievances with Rayleigh, and he should not intentionally deceive himself, so he nodded and said, I believe you once. 12 million Bailey's sincerity. Seeing that Doflamingo had no objection, Rayleigh held out his hand to ask for the money. Doflamingo gave him a strange look and said, Did Miss Sha-Chi tell you? What? Rayleigh's eyes panicked, and he had a bad premonition in his heart. He swallowed and said, What? You, hurry up. Cough. As early as the second day of your work, I have already handed over the 72 million Eli to Sister Smite. Doflamingo cleared his throat and said. In an instant, Rayleigh's face was ashen, and his whole body was fine as if he had turned pale. After a few seconds, Rayleigh snapped back up, grabbed Doflamingo's wrist and said, You bastard. Do you know what you did? You destroyed a middle-aged man's dream. I wanted to take with the 12 million Baileys, go to Carnival Island and enjoy it, treat yourself. Nothing is ruined now. Seeing Rayleigh go crazy here, Doflamingo knocked off his hand in disgust and said, Anyway, I have already given you the money, you can go to Big Sister Jenki for it. At this moment, Rayleigh's heart was ashamed, and he only felt that his hard work in the past month was all in vain. But after all, Doflamingo gave the money, and he does not doubt that Doflamingo will lie to him. There is no need. This kind of thing is too easy to expose, if Doflamingo dares to lie to him. It is true that he is Pluton Herbaz. Rayleigh can't lift the knife, can you? Let's go. Let's get out of Sabaody Archipelago. I don't want to see you again in this life, Doflamingo. Rayleigh waved his hands weakly. But at this moment, Doflamingo grabbed Rayleigh's hand, stuffed something into his hand and said, I can only help you so far, old Ray. After finishing speaking, Doflamingo waved his hand and said, Load supplies and get ready to board the ship. On the pier, the younger brothers of the Donquixote family got busy all at once, and Doflamingo didn't say anything to Rayleigh and went in there. Rayleigh looked at Doflamingo's back, looked at his hand with some doubts, and opened his palm to see, good guy, it's a check. Look carefully again, there are a million Baileys. Although the salary is far from the expected salary, that for Rayleigh, who is ashamed at this time, it is a surprise. You are a good man. Doflamingo. Rayleigh looked at Doflamingo directing his younger brother to work on the pier, sighed, and then left. Totally forgot that he said just now that he never wanted to see Doflamingo again. Not long after Rayleigh left, the supplies on Doflamingo's side were almost loaded, and he was about to board the ship. Roran saw another group of people coming to the pier. Before they approached, Doflamingo heard some voices, saying something like, Coding, money is not a problem, although I am a pirate, but I am very trustworthy, I must do my job well, and so on. Obviously, a group of people hired a coder to coat the film. And this group of guys is the group of Moria who just boarded the Sabaody Archipelago 2 days ago. After Moria ordered the coder, she turned her head and saw Doflamingo, who was observing them. The eyes of the two converged for a moment, and then Moria nodded slightly at Doflamingo as a greeting. Doflamingo didn't speak either, and responded in the same way. It seemed that the two sides did not intend to communicate. At this moment, Senor stood on the deck and called out, Young master, you can set sail. Doflamingo turned and boarded the ship without further delay. Soon, the huge bubble rapidly expanded, completely enveloping the new flamingo, forming a transparent circle. Then, the ship began to sink from the sea. This feeling of being swallowed by the sea is really novel. Standing on the pier, Moria watched Doflamingo's ship gradually sinking into the sea. After a long time, she shook her head and said, Let that guy take another step ahead. Doflamingo came to the Sabaody Archipelago first. Is he going to break into the New World first? Moria is very clear that once Doflamingo enters New World, it will inevitably lead to conflicts with New World's established powerhouses. This point is already obvious, and the cruel words of the Big Mom pirates have already been released. At the same time, Moria also knows that even without the Big Mom pirates, Doflamingo must take the initiative to find trouble when he enters New World. This is leeway. If you want to gain a firm foothold in New World, leeway is an indispensable link. Let alone Doflamingo, why didn't he think so about Gecko Moria? And he has already chosen his target, which is the Beast's pirates who are currently entrenched in Wano Kuni. He heard that Kaido seems to be hanging, so he doesn't believe in evil. Everyone has 2 shoulders and 1 head. You Kaido, what's so great? The Fishmen Island is actually not very far from Saboti Archipelago. From the point of view of straight line distance, it is 10,000 meters below Saboti Archipelago. When converted into kilometers, it is only 10 kilometers. If you are lucky enough to catch the deep ocean current when diving, then the boat will arrive at the legendary The Fishmen Island in just 10 minutes from Saboti Archipelago. Of course, this sounds very simple, but in fact, only 70% of the ships going to the Fishmen Island every year can reach it, and the remaining 30% are mostly unlucky. The coating failed, and they died on the bottom of the sea. The death rate is still high. Doflamingo and the others were lucky. Not long after they dived, they caught up with the deep ocean current and were quickly engulfed by the current and headed towards the Fishmen Island. It is estimated that it will arrive soon. However, Doflamingo was also very panicked, fearing that the old guy Rayleigh would cheat him. He let go of his observation hockey all the way, covering the whole boat in it, and closely observed the coating situation. But let alone. Rayleigh's craftsmanship is really good, and there was no accident along the way. When the current threw the new flamingo out, a huge underwater world appeared in Doflamingo and his group in sight. The majestic Dragon Palace City, the sea forest like a forest under the sea, the bustling Grand Square, and the bustling port terminal. Is this the legendary The Fishmen Island? Beckman looked over there excitedly, and said excitedly, "My dream land. I finally fulfilled my dream, Dover. I'm so sorry. If possible, I want to disembark here and live in the arms of a mermaid for the rest of my life." Doflamingo looked at Beckman a little strangely, feeling that this guy has changed more and more wrong these days. Although he also opened up and said that he likes beautiful women in the past, he should not be as rampant as he is now, and since he was in Saboti on Archipelago, I had some emotional disputes with a lady from a certain nobleman. After being dubbed an emotional liar by members of the Donquixote family, this guy seems to let himself go more and more. What does it mean? Broken jar. Ignoring Beckman, who was in a fit, Doflamingo touched the letter of introduction in his arms. I hope this time I can gain something. Normally, pirates are not allowed to enter the country, so generally pirates will sail to Sea Forest, which is equivalent to the illegal area of the Fishmen Island, and then land on the Fishmen Island from Sea Forest. But Doflamingo didn't mean to be so sneaky, and directly asked Beckman to drive the boat into the Coral Hill. Coral Hill is one of the port cities of the Fishmen Island. Although the era of great pirates has already broken out, Doflamingo is considered the first wave of pirates to arrive at the Fishmen Island, so currently the Fishmen Island has not yet become very chaotic due to the continuous influx of pirates that followed. At that time, a large number of pirates will flood here, kidnap the beautiful mermaid girls, take them to the sea, and sell them to slave traders at a high price. This tragic situation was not improved until Neptunea's good friend Whitebeard Edward Newgate couldn't stand it anymore and lent his flag to the Fishmen Island and took it as his own territory. It can also be seen from this that the era of great pirates is an era of chaos and an era of opportunity for ambitious people such as Doflamingo. But for the common people in the sea, this era is undoubtedly a bloody and cruel dark age. The ship was moored in the port of Coral Hill, and Doflamingo and his party quickly disembarked. It can be seen that many beautiful mermaids live in this port town. Needless to say, the probability of mermaids producing beauties is really high. Almost at a glance, all the mermaid ladies are very good looking and have a very attractive figure. No wonder, this place is called Men's Dream Paradise. On the streets of Coral Hill, Doflamingo and his team bought a map of the Fishmen Island from a store, and studied it while walking. The green-haired Gilder Tetzolo walked side by side with Stella. His eyes were curious and unsure, observing the surrounding situation. That's right, after saving Tetzolo and Stella from his cousin Musgrid, Doflamingo took advantage of the opportunity to invite them. Stella or something, Doflamingo doesn't know if she has any talents, but she is indeed beautiful and has a good figure. Even if she doesn't have talents, it's good to be a mascot on the boat. As for Tetzolo, this kid has experienced ups and downs in his life, and now he only feels that Doflamingo is the most powerful. After Doflamingo rescued him and Stella, he wholeheartedly wanted to be Doflamingo's helper and subordinate. Doflamingo is very happy about this. After all, although this kid looks like a wimp now, it is because of his experiences since he was a child that he has no self-confidence. Waiting to be on the boat, seeing the big scenes, and experiencing the new life, these weaknesses in character should be correctable. Most importantly, this kid has a flexible mind, especially in business. During Saboti Archipelago, Doflamingo also tested Tetzolo and raised many related questions. How should I put it? Tetzolo's answer is not particularly powerful, but his answer does reveal his thoughts and considerations, but he is a little immature due to his limited vision and experience. This is not a problem, as long as there are talents and talents of, the rest can be cultivated. Doflamingo decided to find a relevant teacher for Tezzolo and ask him to make up a makeup class. After finishing the work, he will be sent to Toribol to practice and do some work. After a few years, he should be able to take care of himself. If you are lucky and can find the golden fruit again, the legendary story of the Golden Emperor cannot be shaped. Did you see it? Tezzolo. Beckman joked as he walked beside Tezzolo. Tezzolo blushed, and hurriedly said, "No, I think Stella is more beautiful." Stella on the side was stunned for a moment, then a shy smile appeared on her face, and she didn't speak, but her eyes were obviously very happy that Tezzolo could say that. Looking at Stella's gentle eyes, Beckman said helplessly, "Damn it, Tezzolo, I really envy you." Huh. Tezzolo looked a little confused. Virgo took advantage of the situation and said, "I saw you going on a date with that noble lady the other day. Obviously, that lady is also a first-class beauty. Why didn't you cherish it?" Beckman froze for a moment, shook his head with a bit of regret in his eyes, with a look of, "You don't understand, stop discussing this topic," and set his sights on the mermaid on the street again. Passing through Coral Hill, you will enter the square of Jalan Kod, which is the place where Princess Otahime was later assassinated, and the square of Jiran Kod can be regarded as the most accessible central area of the whole the Fishmen Island. Go south, then you can reach the chaotic Murloc Street. The history of Murloc Street is not very long, maybe less than a few decades, but now it has become the most troublesome problem in the entire the Fishmen Island, and this place seems to be the source of chaos in the Fishmen Island security issues. When Fishman Street was first established in the early years, it was actually to take care of orphans and poor people on the social level of the Fishmen Island. It probably wanted them to gather together and accept official management and training from the Fishmen Island. However, this policy corrupted very quickly. Funds that should have been allocated for the construction and education of Fishman Street were quickly embezzled by various officials. The life of the orphans and poor people in Murloc Street became more difficult immediately, but the upper-level officials have been using their power to cover up these problems, which later caused the residents of Murloc Street to distrust the ruling class of the Fishmen Island. The intensification of poverty naturally led the residents of Murloc Street to take the extreme road in order to make a living. They began to form gangs, disturb the law and order, cheat, rob, and kill. After such a situation developed for a period of time, Murloc Street quickly became the source of security problems on the Fishmen Island. Until a few years ago, a new boss appeared in Murloc Street, named Fisher Tiger, who unified all the gangs in Murloc Street and became the most prestigious clan in Murloc Street. After that, he did not lead his younger brothers to continue to do evil, but finally reached a certain consensus with the ruler of the Fishmen Island, Dragon Palace City. To a certain extent, the conflict between Murloc Street and the Fishmen Island has been alleviated. But that's it. There are hundreds of thousands of idle Murlocs in Murloc Street, and Dragon Palace City can't completely solve their employment problem. We can only stabilize the situation first and then slowly seek opportunities. Therefore, the current Murloc Street is still a relatively chaotic place, but it is indeed much better than before. Doflamingo took the map and walked all the way to Murloc Street. Not to mention, this ghost place is really ghostly. Maybe because the location is not good, the Yongguan that was originally passed down by Yangshu Eve is also here. Appears dim. In the streets, we often see trash cans that have been kicked over, with all kinds of garbage scattered inside, and occasionally we can see strong Murlocs bullying their compatriots. Doflamingo is not surprised by this. It is no different from humans on the sea, and it is the same scene when North Blue enters the territory of those gang members. Excuse me. Doflamingo politely walked up to a strong Murloc who was pressing a weak Murloc to the ground and said. After the Murloc turned around and saw Doflamingo, he asked in surprise, "Humans?" "Well, I want to ask for directions, you know." Doflamingo responded calmly and asked. But before he finished speaking, the Murloc smiled ferociously and said, "Murloc Street is not a place for you disgusting humans to come. Hand over all your money, and I may let you leave alive." Doflamingo sighed slightly, then said, 2 minutes, I hope he can speak to me in a polite tone." "No problem." Virgo walked out from behind Doflamingo first. Doflamingo turned around, lit a cigarette, and then heard a crackling sound coming from behind. The Murloc, who was still very arrogant, seemed to be wailing and begging for mercy. The rest of the Donquixote family cadres also watched this scene with a smile on their faces. 2 minutes later, the burly Murloc knelt on the ground with a bruised nose and a swollen face, and said honestly, "Yes, you're going this way. The tallest room inside is number 42 Murloc Street, and its boss Tiger. Residence." "Well, thank you very much." Doflamingo nodded in satisfaction, then looked at everyone and said, "Then what? It's still the old rule. Let's disband. Let's play on the Fishman Island first. Wait for me to deal with it after the matter has been dealt with. Let's set off again. If there is anything I need from you, I will contact you. There was nothing to be hypocritical about, and they disbanded soon. But it's a bit strange to say that Beckman, who has been clamoring to find Miss Mermaid, is honestly following Doflamingo. Doflamingo looked at Beckman strangely, and suddenly found a problem. Ever since this guy dumped that lady from the noble family, although he has been talking about Gotti, but when he was in Saboti Archipelago, in the following days, he didn't go out and change girlfriends like he did before. It's the same now, although he shouted about Miss Mermaid, but at this time, he didn't really take any action. It's kind of interesting. Doflamingo secretly smiled inwardly, but he didn't get to the bottom of it. In this way, Virgo, Beckman, and Doflamingo continued to go to the depths of Murloc Street, planning to visit the leader of Murloc Street, Fisher Tiger. After walking for too long, Doflamingo saw Tiger's figure. Fisher Tiger's skin was red, and his figure looked strong. He was squatting in his own yard, telling stories to several children. Fur tribe. Do you know? They are also intelligent beings living in this sea. The last time I went on an adventure, I was with the fur tribe. Tiger told the children about the world on the sea with a smile. While talking, he also noticed Doflamingo's group walking towards this side. His brows were slightly frowned, and then he clapped his hands and said, "Okay, that's the end of today's story. I will tell you tomorrow. Speak up and disband." The children dispersed quickly. Tiger stood up, walked up to Doflamingo and the others and asked, "Humans? This is not the place you should come." "Hello, Mr. Tiger." Doflamingo greeted politely, and then took out his introduction channel. "Master Tom introduced me. Master Tom and I are good friends." "Mr. Tom." Tiger was stunned for a moment, then took the letter of introduction from Doflamingo's hand, and read it immediately. Soon, Tiger, who was still very wary of Doflamingo's group, put on a bright smile on his face and said, "Come on, please come in, let's sit at home." Fisher Tiger's attitude towards Doflamingo suddenly changed to a very friendly look, not because of how strong his relationship with Master Tom was. In fact, although he did know Master Tom, it was just a friend. The reason for his change of attitude is that Master Tom said in the letter that Doflamingo is very rich. If Doflamingo is happy, maybe Doflamingo can donate to Murloc Street or something. Especially from the letter, I learned that Doflamingo spent more than 40 billion pelli to build a ship, and that ship was almost as big as an island. What is this? This is a local tyrant. While Doflamingo followed Tiger into the room, he was also a little puzzled. Is Master Tom so fierce? Tiger's house is not tidy. This guy is a rough guy after all. The house is messy, and there are actually beer bottles that have been drunk. Smiling a little embarrassedly, Tiger quickly tidied up indiscriminately, making room for Doflamingo and the others. After entertaining Doflamingo and others to sit down, Tiger said with a smile, "I'm sorry, the house is too messy." "It's okay, understandable," Doflamingo said with a smile. He's the same guy, except he has a whole team of maids to help him tidy up. I brought a few bottles of beer to the Doflamingo people, and it was considered as tea, and then Tiger said, "Since you are Mr. Tom's friends, you are my friends. I don't know if you come to the Fishman Island this time. Is there anything I can do to help?" Today's Tiger is still an adventurer, and he has never been caught by the slave team and sold to Marie Joyce. It can be said that he has no hatred or prejudice towards human beings. So in terms of personality, when facing Doflamingo, he is more cheerful. Doflamingo smiled and said, "That's it. I wonder if Master Tom has introduced us to you in a letter." Yes. Tiger nodded, and said with a smile, "Mr. Doflamingo, you are the Donquixote family from North Blue, and you are doing business in the dark world, right?" Doflamingo nodded and said, "Yes, that's roughly the case." It seems that Tiger didn't care about Doflamingo's identity and position at all. On second thought, yes, even though I am a pirate and a member of the dark world, Tiger is also the boss of a gangster, and he is also the boss of a party. To be able to grow up in a place like Murloc Street and become the boss, although Tiger is still noble in personality, he must have walked in the dark. So Doflamingo didn't delay any longer, and continued, "This time, I'm looking for some Murloc or mermaid crew members to join our Donquixote family. Boss Tiger, you have great prestige in Murloc Street, might be able to help. Not that it has to be a powerful character, Kadri or something. Doflamingo does not insist on this. His ship is very big, and the Cervantes will be even more terrifying in the future. He just needs some Murloc crew members, and the purpose is very simple. On the one hand, it is to open up a relationship with the Fishman Island, and on the other hand, the capable people on board are a bit of an important guarantee. Once something unexpected happens, the sea is the home of the Murlocs and mermaids, so they can bring you back no matter what. If it's an ordinary crew member, There's no problem with that. There are quite a few good guys in Murloc Street, and I hope to see the outside world. Tiger said with a smile. Then thank you, Boss Tiger. Doflamingo said with satisfaction. He didn't ask about the specific situation. Doflamingo didn't intend to bargain, and he paid as much as he could. This first meeting was quite pleasant, and soon, Doflamingo chatted with Tiger about other things. Not to mention, as a little adventurer among the Murlocs, Tiger has really been wandering outside these years, and he has some understanding of the first half of the Grand Line, New World and other places. And Doflamingo is a famous keyboard man, who can make even Dorag faint. As long as it involves bragging and farting, he can chat with you about any topic. So the communication with Tiger is also very pleasant and easy. It seems that Doflamingo's knowledgeable Tiger is also gradually deliberately guiding the topic in the direction he cares about. Mr. Doflamingo, I heard that the Donquixote family is one of the most powerful forces in the Dark World in North Blue. You should have seen something like our Murloc Street, right? Tiger asked suddenly. Doflamingo rubbed his chin, and then said softly, I have seen similar environments many times. I myself have a certain understanding of Murloc Street, and I have seen and heard along the way. Let me just say two things. Sentence, Boss Tiger, do you see it right? Please speak. Tiger immediately responded seriously. The general situation of Murloc Street is similar to a slum. I don't like to say that. Doflamingo thought for a while and said. But Tiger sighed after hearing the words. Maybe it doesn't sound good, but in fact it is so. Murloc Street is indeed the largest slum in the Fishman Island. Because of poverty, life is bound to be unsatisfactory, and unsatisfactory life can easily affect emotional problems. Plus, at this point, Doflamingo hesitated. Tiger said frankly, plus, our Murlocs are naturally rude, right? Cough. I'm actually not sure if this is a rumor or true. Doflamingo smiled a little embarrassedly. Tiger sighed and said, it's true, the vast majority of Murloc compatriots are more reckless and irritable than other races in the sea in terms of character and temper. This is our inherent deficiency. Place. Seeing that the boss himself admitted it, Doflamingo stopped hesitating and continued, in short, these factors lead to the breeding of violence. Violence can solve many problems. So naturally, it will lead to here comes the gang. When Doflamingo said this, he looked at Tiger and said, this situation is actually not bad for you, Boss Tiger. It should even be said that it is precisely because of the violence and chaos in Murloc Street that you can be better. Good to hold the power of Murloc Street. Tiger looked at Doflamingo silently, and said after a long time, if I want to be the gang leader for the rest of my life, then maybe you are right. But you're not? Doflamingo whispered. No, Tiger shook his head without hesitation. Then what does Boss Tiger want? Doflamingo asked again. Tiger suddenly smiled again and said, there is nothing wrong with gangs. People like me are not qualified to say that they are bad. The same is true for evil and violence. Maybe some people are destined to eat this kind of rice by nature. Yes, but I don't want that to be the only option for my countrymen. What I want is for those kids, when they grow up, to be able to have more choices than just being gangsters. This is a way out. For this reason, I have reconciled with Dragon Palace City. Nowadays, many good guys from our Murloc Street have joined the guards of Dragon Palace City. This is a choice, a kind of progress, Mr. Doflamingo. Doflamingo nodded, then looked at Tiger and said, do you want more? Of course I want to. Tiger said without hesitation, but I know that this is very difficult. If you want to have more choices, you can't just learn violence. Murloc Street needs education. Need money, need a lot. Most importantly, need employment. Doflamingo said with a smile. That's right. Tiger's eyes lit up, and he looked at Doflamingo appreciatively and said, if the employment problem can be solved, then everyone can have a regular income. Like us, they have been gangsters since they were young. If they have money, they can send their children to school, learn new knowledge, grasp new opportunities and outlets. When they grow up, they can become doctors, lawyers, technicians. Not gangsters. Obviously, Tiger has always known the way out of Murloc Street, and he doesn't need others to enlighten him. But Tiger quickly said secretly, but I am not the only one who knows. I have talked about this with His Majesty Neptune, and His Majesty Neptune is also very clear about how to eradicate the contradictions in Murloc Street. But the reality is that it cannot be allowed. The cake of the Fishman Island is only so big, it is not our turn to eat these dregs from Murloc Street. So Boss Tiger suddenly told me these words. Did he see hope in me? Doflamingo asked with a smile. That's right. Tiger admitted immediately, and then said, although it's just a hope, but people like us who are in the mud can see hope, so we must do everything we can to try. I'll go have been to North Blue, so I know that your Donquixote family's business is very big, and Eve said so much today, but I just want to say, if Mr. Doflamingo has any chance in the future, please don't forget our Murloc Street. Doflamingo raised his brows and said, actually, it's not like there are opportunities for cooperation. Of course, not now. If Doflamingo wants to cooperate with Murloc Street or even the Fishman Island, Doflamingo needs to secure his base camp in New World first. The cooperation intention of Doflamingo is actually very simple, that is, the mineral deposits on the seabed. The business of the Donquixote family in North Blue involves the mining industry, and now Pika is handling these matters. It is said that because of his ability, the mining business of the Donquixote family in North Blue is still developing very fast. There was once a report that pointed out that the mineral resources on the seabed are far more than those on the islands, but so far, no mining giant has mastered the advanced mining technology for seabed minerals. Doflamingo is not there either, but it doesn't matter if you don't have technology, there are more ways than difficulties. The strength of the Murlocs is 10 times higher than that of ordinary humans, and they can freely enter and exit the deep sea. Most of the Murlocs are strong and simple in character. Isn't this a good labor force? And Murloc Street has a labor force of 100,000. If Doflamingo manages this seabed mining project well, he will immediately make the Donquixote family a global mining giant. After leaving Murloc Street, Tiger and Doflamingo exchanged phone bug signals, and Tiger promised that when Doflamingo was about to leave the Fishman Island, he would arrange a crew of 100 Murloc males for him. Doflamingo thinks that this should be enough. When the time comes, let the Murlocs form a lifeguard team so that they don't have to worry about falling into the water during the voyage. Mermaid Bay. Here is the place where the Fishman Island mermaids live together. Unlike Murloc Street, this place is connected to the main trunk of Yangshu Eve, so it can be said that the sun is shining and the weather is just right. Standing on the hillside, Doflamingo observed the situation in Mermaid Bay, and he was full of emotion. Beauties, as far as the eye can see, almost all of them are top-notch beauties. All kinds of mermaids are sitting on the bubbles and swimming in the air. It dazzles everyone. And Beckman on the side also swallowed his saliva and said, heaven. Not to mention Beckman and Doflamingo, the two perverted dogs, even Virgo, who has never been very interested in beauties, felt a little restless at this moment. From a distance, I saw a huge mermaid bar, and from the window glass, I could see that guy Helding was having a blast in it. Whether it is a mermaid or a Murloc, because of their bloodlines, their physique is also very random. Fish giants like Neptune are not uncommon in the deep sea. It is also because of this that the buildings on the Fishman Island are usually huge, and the West is to facilitate these compatriots who are huge in nature. But this is considered cheap Helding. The few people are free and have nothing to do, and it just so happens that it's time for dinner, so I'm going to have a meal. As soon as I walked into the gate of the tavern, I saw Helding sitting at the big table in the middle, with a beautiful electric mermaid girl about his size attached to his left arm. The two were clinking glasses excitedly. From the giants to the little men, you can find a beautiful girl who suits you on the Fishman Island. This place is indeed a paradise. Beckman watched a little mermaid not much bigger than his palm swim past, said with great emotion. My lord. Helding saw Doflamingo at once, and Doflamingo waved. As Doflamingo walked over, he asked, are you the only one here? That's right. Lily went to play with Gladius and the others. I don't really like to hang out, and I happen to be hungry, so I came to find something to eat and drink, Helding said carelessly. In fact, the thing is, when the group of them walked around here, the huge mermaid girl next to Helding happened to be waiting for customers at the entrance of the tavern. Her beautiful appearance hit Helding's heart instantly, and he said nothing went in and consumed without saying anything. Soon, a mermaid girl came to Doflamingo, handed the menu to Doflamingo, and said with a smile, my guest, what do you want? Doflamingo took the menu and looked at it twice, Not to mention, the Fishman Island is really simple, and the price is very cheap. However, it may also be my own illusion. After leaving the tavern of Sister Sha-Chi, I am afraid that it will be cheap to go to any place to drink, right? After scanning the menu, Doflamingo hesitated for a moment and asked, is there no meat? The mermaid girl hurriedly said, sorry, guest, we can't provide fish meat here, because we mermaids have the ability to communicate with fish. In our culture, we are companions with fish. I know that, is there any other meat? Doflamingo asked again. Yes, but the price is very expensive. There have been complaints from customers before, so the store manager later changed a new menu and cancelled all those expensive dishes. If you want it, you have to be mentally prepared. The mermaid girl said with a smile. After a pause, the mermaid girl skillfully reported a list of dishes, and Doflamingo had to admit that they were indeed expensive. For example, a roasted whole lamb on the Saboti archipelago is only sold for 120,000 berry, But here, the roasted whole lamb is only sold for 2 million berry. 2 million Baileys. This is the price that Doflamingo was slaughtered on the head of Sister Shao-Chi. Now, what kind of performance is the purchasing power of 2 million Baileys? Well, a regular small 3-masted sailboat is about the same price. In other words, a roasted whole lamb from the Fishman Island costs the price of a boat. No wonder Hayarding, a guy who loves meat and dislikes, doesn't have a little bit. After all, it would cost hundreds of millions of Baileys to feed him according to his appetite. Except for roasted whole lamb, the prices of other ingredients that are not available in the Fishman Island are very expensive. Doflamingo thought for a moment, ordered a roast lamb, and ordered a bunch of other dishes, with a total price of 7.6 million Baileys. This can be said to be a super big order, and the mermaid girl was very excited. Doflamingo also took advantage of the opportunity to ask, "Here on the Fishman Island, things about the sea are very expensive. I don't think it's just about ingredients, right?" The mermaid girl was also very happy to open a big one. Seeing a rich man like Doflamingo was even more pleasing to the eye, and the tails of the fish in the bubble circle behind her were all swaying. As soon as Doflamingo asked, she replied without hesitation, "Yes, they are very valuable. Wine, animal fur, small toys, watches. These things, I heard from Shiarly's brother, seem to be on the sea. I'd guess more than 10 times cheaper than here, eh? The productivity of the Fishman Island is here, and the technical environment is also here. Coupled with the isolation from the sea, it is true that it has developed a unique culture, but many technical products cannot be produced. Like clocks and watches, the Fishman Island cannot produce them, and the price of such unproduced items is of course extremely expensive. As for animal fur, the Fishman Island is even more scarce, because there are not many animals with fur here." At the same time, Doflamingo also noticed that the prices of the special products of the Fishman Island are very different from those on the sea, like pearls the size of a fist. At this time, there are several decorations on the bar counter of the store. 1. And when I inquired about the price, it was only a few hundred Baileys each, which can be said to be very cheap. But if it is placed on the sea, those nobles who have money and have no place to spend it will treat this kind of pearl that is as big as a fist, and at the same time, it is beautiful and flawless, as a real luxury, a treasure. Of. Doflamingo estimated that this rotten street item on the Fishman Island would sell for at least tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of Pele, right? What the hell? This feng shui treasure can't be handed over to that guy Whitebeard. When I win the position of 7 warlords of the sea, it is estimated that the Fishman Island will just be ushered in by pirates. At that time, I will put the Fishman Island as designated as its own territory, and a competent cadre will be sent to sit in charge. Doflamingo secretly decided in his heart. Once the Fishman Island specialty business can be controlled and monopolized, the trade profits here will be terrifying. What's more, there are so many beautiful mermaids here, and the climate and environment are very good, warm and pleasant. Doflamingo intends to use this place as his own resort. Soon, the drinks and meals were served. Normally, the mermaid girl should leave, but maybe she felt the proudness of Doflamingo. Anyway, she didn't leave, so she just got together here to laugh with Doflamingo of. After a while, the mermaid girl said again, "By the way, guest, are you interested in divination? We have a super divination master in our store. Only 20,000 Baileys for one time." Master divination? Doflamingo froze for a moment. Then he suddenly remembered something. Did the mermaid girl mean Shiarly's elder brother or something? Thinking of this, Doflamingo said with a smile, "Then let's try." The mermaid girl said happily, "Then wait for me a moment, I'll go get Yuan Li." After the little girl left, Beckman lit a cigarette and said, "Divination is a lie." "Maybe, but do you think it's a loss for me to spend an extra 20,000 berries to invite a girl from the mermaid family to chat with us?" Doflamingo asked calmly. Beckman froze for a moment, and immediately said with a serious face, "It has to be you, young master." On the other side, in the backstage of the tavern, the mermaid girl was talking to another beautiful shark mermaid girl. "That guest is very interesting, and he is generous, Shiarly. This is a good opportunity," said the mermaid girl. "Leanie, but I'm about to leave work," Shiarly said with some embarrassment. "Shiarly, you dream of opening a coffee shop. If you don't work hard, when will you save enough money? I still hope to work in your shop in the future," Leanie urged. Thinking of her dream, Shiarly hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay then. Let's go. Let me remind you first, if you find something bad in divination later, don't talk nonsense. Just pick up some nice things to say. Maybe this guest will give you a reward when he is happy. With a big Bailey or something, you can realize your dream immediately," Leanie said enthusiastically. Soon, Shiarly was dragged out from the backstage, and Doflamingo took a look at it, and sure enough, he guessed right. He is tall and tall, but not as tall as he originally thought. It may be because he is still young. Together with the tail, it is about 3 meters tall. He has a delicate face and short indigo hair. He has a very good figure and is slightly dressed. Mysterious but recognizable, very simple, just a blue hooded lace sweater. There is no jewelry on her body, and it can be seen from this that the family background of this mermaid girl is definitely not very good. In fact, it is indeed so. This one is the master divination master of the Fishman Island, Mrs. Shirley. But it is obvious that she is not a madam, now, just a 17-year-old mermaid girl. Shirley and Arlong are half-brothers and sisters. When the two were very young, even if they had no home, they grew up together in Murloc Street. Naturally, the conditions at home were not very good. Shirley's character is actually not cowardly, so she was a little shy at the beginning, but after arriving at Doflamingo's side, she has completely let go. Guest. Master Shirley is our divination master, she is very powerful, Leanie said excitedly. Shirley also nodded to Doflamingo and his group. Hi, all guests. Hello, Master Shirley, Doflamingo said with a smile. Shirley, who was young and was called Master by serious people, also said a little embarrassedly, it's fine for the guests to call me Shirley. My name is Doflamingo, Doflamingo responded. Beckman, Virgo, Helding and others also introduced themselves. They didn't say that they started divination right away, but talked about some miscellaneous things first. Shirley sat next to Doflamingo, and Leanie sat between Beckman and Virgo tactfully. Basically, if the Camden lady in the tavern comes to the table, she must give a tip, after all, she is not a real bartender. Doflamingo and the others are also very generous, playing games for a while, chatting about the Fishman Island and the customs on the sea. Everyone looks very happy anyway, and the tips are not small. After chatting for a while, when it came to divination, Beckman knew the girl well, and asked, is Master Shirley's divination true or false? In fact, this way of asking is not impolite, because there are indeed many liars in divination, and Shirley has encountered such questions. She said confidently, I can't say I'm bragging. I've mastered this ability since I can remember. Up to now, all divinations have been 100% successful, even the previous One Piece Roger. It really recognizes my abilities. Roger. Beckman looked at Shirley in surprise. Leanie on the side explained. When Shirley was 3 years old, she used to divination for the Roger Pirates. Everyone was slightly surprised, but they didn't seem to want to ask more questions. Doflamingo stroked his chin and asked, since you are so confident, why don't we make a bet? What bet? Shirley asked confidently indeed. Doflamingo thought for a while and said, didn't you just say that your dream is to open a luxurious coffee shop in Coral Hill? If you can really succeed in divination about what will happen to me tomorrow, I will help you realize your dream. This is Mermaid Harbor, which belongs to the inland of the Fishman Island, and Coral Hill is the most prosperous port area of the Fishman Island, and the land price in that place is quite high. If you want to open a luxurious coffee shop or something there, you probably won't be able to afford it without 200 or 300 million Baileys. Shirley has worked hard to make money since she was a child, but so far, she has not been able to save enough. 20 years later, she seems to have just opened the coffee shop not long ago. Shirley froze for a moment, looked at Doflamingo with a little hesitation and said, why don't you change it, the cost is too huge. It can be seen that Shirley is still very kind-hearted. She has 100% trust in her own ability, so she feels that this is a safe bet. There is one step left. As long as Doflamingo, who has been taken for a ride, doesn't go back on his word. Even so, Shirley was the first to object to the bet. Leanie on the side was also a little worried and said, that's right, my lord. Shirley wants to open a luxury coffee shop in Coral Hill, we have calculated it, and it will cost at least 260 million to get it all done. As for Juan Bailey, forget it. Everyone at the table called Doflamingo Master Young Master, so Leanie also called Doflamingo. Beckman on the side laughed and said, don't worry, it's only 200 to 300 million Pele, my young master can still afford it. Although I don't know what Doflamingo is thinking, but seeing his confident expression, Becky decided to help. And Doflamingo's idea is also very simple. Shirley's divination ability is really powerful, it can be said to be 100% hit, but he, Doflamingo, can be regarded as an outsider in this world, so he is also curious, can Shirley predict himself? If he can't, he won't lose this gamble, he'll be a whore for nothing, and he'll be flattered. And if it is possible, it means that the real ability is really beyond the outline. What does this mean? It means that she can truly foresee the future. At that time, how can the value she represents be compared with a mere 300 to 200 million Baileys? Therefore, this is also a kind of temptation and test for Doflamingo. Considering other factors, it is actually not a big problem to give Shirley a coffee shop after all. After all, you became the respected Mrs. Chongli by the Fishmen Island. Doflamingo already has some thoughts on the Fishmen Island at this time, so there is nothing wrong with spending some money and investing in the future. Seeing that Doflamingo doesn't seem to listen to persuasion, his little friends also look like they are stupid and have a lot of money. Shirley and Leanie hesitated for a moment, then stopped persuading them. That's fine, you did it voluntarily. Shirley pursed her lips. Don't worry. Doflamingo said calmly, and at the same time took off the tail ring on his finger, put it on the table in front of Shirley and said, this ring is worth 500 million Baileys. I put it here as collateral. Leanie carefully observed the ring, and then said, that's not true, although this ring is indeed made of very rare black gemstones, even if the pure gold ring setting is included. According to the jewelry market on the sea from the price point of view, it is worth at most 200 million Baileys. Are you a jewelry appraisal master? Doflamingo asked a little curiously. Leanie saw that Doflamingo was so serious, and she was a little embarrassed and said, isn't it okay to be a self-taught appraisal master? Okay. Doflamingo nodded, and then said, but, you're mistaken. Doflamingo pinched the ring, and then saw that the ring released several thin lines that were almost invisible to the naked eye, swaying in the air. This is... Leanie was really confused. What's going on? This ring also contains the ability of devil fruit, so 500 million, no problem. Doflamingo smiled. If they talked and laughed like this before, Shirley thought that after the result might come out, Doflamingo would quickly turn his face and deny it, or that he was drinking too much and joking or something. But as Doflamingo now puts one of his precious rings on the table, Shirley has sensed that the blonde handsome guy with a sinister grin seems to be serious. Okay, this is my bet, so now, it's your turn, Master Shirley. Doflamingo said with a smile. Only then did Shirley realize that, yes, Doflamingo has placed the bet, so she must have it too. Although she thinks she can win 100%, rules are rules. But what makes Shirley a little helpless now is that she simply can't afford the bet of the same value. Whether it's a ring worth 500 million, or the Mermaid Cafe, anyway, it's the kind of money that she can't afford to sell her. So Shirley blushed and said very ashamedly, I'm sorry, I. At this moment, Beckman said, my lord, you should be a gentleman. If you ask me, treasures are too vulgar. Why don't you bet on a kiss from Master Shirley? A kiss worth 260 million Baileys. Virgo rubbed his chin and complained, it's even higher than Dover's bounty. Helding on the side laughed and said, but it's interesting, isn't it? Doflamingo is not an innocent guy. He himself thinks that Shirley is very beautiful and has a good figure. She belongs to the big beauty in his own aesthetic range. So Doflamingo immediately said, as we all know, I am the most irresistible beauty, so I agree. Although Shirley is very beautiful, she is actually a very innocent girl. She has never been in a relationship since she grew up. She was ashamed and indignant when she suddenly mentioned this, but looking at Doflamingo's handsome face, she felt inexplicably expectant a feeling of. So after hesitating for a while, Shirley finally mustered up the courage and said, then, let's go like this. After finishing speaking, Shirley quickly realized, why am I guilty? I am sure to win the game. Thinking about it this way, I was still a little apprehensive, but quickly calmed down. Then, everyone saw that Shirley took out a crystal ball and put it on the table, and then asked Doflamingo to press his hand on the crystal ball. After Doflamingo did so, Shirley put his hands on top of the crystal ball and began to activate his own abilities. To be honest, during this period, Doflamingo has been carefully observing Shirley's situation, but did not find any fluctuations in energy. It really seems that Shirley is lying. But Doflamingo knows that she really has the ability, so it can be seen that her ability is really quite mysterious. As Shirley kept rubbing his hands, the expressions of the people around him also became expectant and serious. But at this time Shirley panicked. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Why can't I see the future of Doflamingo? She is very sure that her ability is definitely activated, it is normal, but regarding the future of Doflamingo, it seems to be dark, and she can't see any images inside. Just when Shirley was flustered, the crystal ball that was originally intact suddenly burst into a large number of cracks. Doflamingo looked at his hand covering the crystal ball, confused. What's happening here? Could it be? This is a new type of fraud, right? The crystal ball is worth 500 million or something. Should I pay? But before Doflamingo could speak, it was Shirley who spoke first, and she said in a daze, I can't see. Beckman and others didn't feel much, after all, they didn't really take this seriously. But Leanie was very shocked, as Shirley's good friend, Of course she knew how powerful Shirley is. But after a brief shock, Leanie said in surprise, "Shirley, you don't mean to cheat the young master's kiss?" As soon as Leanie opened her mouth, Shirley's face turned red with embarrassment, and Beckman on the side shouted, "Young master, it's time for you to show your manly demeanor." Doflamingo said in his heart that Lousy had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and he didn't give Shirley any chance to hesitate. He stepped forward and grabbed her smooth nape with one hand, then pulled a little towards him, bowed his head and kissed her directly. Shirley, whose mouth was gagged, suddenly enlarged his eyes, a blush flew across his face, and he was very shy. But it seemed that he was enjoying it a little bit. So far, Master Shirley's first kiss is gone. Doflamingo with excellent physical fitness has great lung capacity. After taking this sip, I insisted on kissing for more than 5 minutes, and when I let go, it was all drawn. Shirley's face was blushing, her eyes were dizzy, and she sat there as if she hadn't come out of the feeling just now. After about 10 minutes, Shirley came back to her senses. When she saw Doflamingo, her fair skin turned red, and the huge shark tail behind her kept swaying, as if she wanted to shoot Doflamingo directly, as dead. At this time, Shirley felt that it was not suitable for him to sit or stand. "Let's go." And Doflamingo still took good care of Shirley, poured her a glass of wine and some delicious food, and changed the subject. "Shirley, are you familiar with the Fishman Island?" Shirley herself was a little confused at the moment, and now that Doflamingo spoke, she replied instinctively, "It's okay. I have done part-time jobs in many places, so to speak. The Fishman Island has been transferred." Doflamingo answered very naturally, "That's great. This is my first time visiting the Fishman Island, and I'm not familiar with the place, and I still need to visit some friends after this, so I just need a guide. If Shirley, you think there is no problem, I want to hire you as my guide, can I?" Huh. Shirley looked a little at a loss. The best friend Leanie, who was at the side, took the initiative to help and asked, "My lord, how much will I be paid to be your guide?" "Food and lodging included, 50,000 pele a day, no problem," Doflamingo said immediately. "Don't look at Shirley's appearance fee of 20,000 berry for coming to divination this time. It seems that 50,000 berry is not very good, but in fact, Shirley may not be able to get someone to come to her for divination once a month. And if she works here, her monthly salary will only be 10 million baileys." "Damn it," Leanie said enviously, "I want to go too. I worked so hard for a month to get a salary of 100,000 baileys." Doflamingo grinned and said, "It's okay, I'm very welcome. Then let's talk about it, starting tomorrow. Where do you live?" "I will meet you tomorrow morning," Leanie said immediately. In this way, Shirley has not agreed yet, it has been arranged. But after reacting, Shirley didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Money or not, in fact, it was secondary to her, the main reason. For this man who suddenly took her first kiss, Shirley want to have more time to get in touch and see what kind of person he is. "Doflamingo and his group haven't found a place to live yet," Leanie immediately said, patted her chest, that she can arrange a close and top-class hotel for Doflamingo and the others. Seeing the turmoil and excitement when she slapped her chest, Doflamingo immediately decided to follow her arrangement. After all, where is living? Soon, after eating and drinking enough, Leanie and Shirley both finished their part-time jobs for the day, so they planned to take Doflamingo and the others to a hotel along the way. The place that Leanie recommended to Doflamingo was the most luxurious location on the Fishman Island except for the Dragon Palace. After checking in, Leanie and Shirley left here together. The two were walking on the street. Leanie held Shirley's arm and asked, "How is it? How is it? Shirley, how is the young master's kissing skills?" Upon hearing this, Shirley blushed and said, "What are you asking, Leanie?" Hey, stop pretending, Shirley, don't I know you yet? You must have a good impression of the young master, otherwise, how could you agree to be a guide tomorrow?" "See through you," expression said. Shirley said angrily, "Isn't that what you promised to come down? I haven't even spoken yet." "That's because I saw your shyness, so I made my own decision. If you don't want to, you will definitely refuse," Leanie said confidently. Shirley couldn't deny it, because Leanie knew her too well. "Speaking of which, don't you see it? My lord and the others are very, very rich, not to mention the ring worth 500 million baileys, you know. I used to work in a famous brand store, however. I can tell you with certainty, whether it is the young master or Beckman, the clothes and materials they are wearing are absolutely extraordinary," Leanie said very quickly. "Leanie," Shirley poked Leanie's head with her hand and said, "You're too money-worshipping, aren't you? Don't be so naive, Shirley." Leanie rolled her eyes and said, "Let me ask you, if you want to find a boyfriend, what do you look for?" Huh? Shirley hesitated for a moment, then said, I didn't think about it." Then let me give you an example. Do you want to find someone who is fat, bald, ugly, sloppy, unhygienic, and rich? Leanie asked. Shirley fantasized for a moment, then shook her head violently and said, no, absolutely not. Okay. Let me give you another example. Young and rich, handsome and generous, strong, humorous. How about it? Leanie asked again. Ah. Shirley hesitated for a moment, then nodded embarrassingly. This seems to be okay. That's right. Leanie said with a look of approval. Look at the young master, is he young and rich? He is only 3 years older than you, and he is only 20 this year. Shirley nodded, and then Leanie said, you are so rich at such a young age, and at the same time, you say the young master is handsome, right? Does it fit your aesthetics? Shirley recalled a little bit, then blushed, and nodded lightly. It does fit a bit. That's it. How can you not seize such a good opportunity? Leanie patted Shirley on the shoulder and said, opportunities are reserved for those who are prepared. In fact, generally speaking, mermaids don't think it has anything to do with the fact that Doflamingo and his party are human beings. Because there are a lot of mermaid girls, after splitting their legs, they will go to the sea to intermarry with humans or something. Therefore, the mermaid race does not exclude humans in terms of marriage and childbearing. On the contrary, many people still think that being able to intermarry with human beings is very interesting and has a lot of face. On the one hand, Shirley felt that what Leanie said seemed to make sense, but on the other hand, she asked with some hesitation, but Leanie, I am only 17 years old, and it will take 13 years before my legs are separated. Female mermaids after the age of 30 can freely change their tails into fishtails in the water and legs on the shore. It is also during this period that the mermaid women can truly conceive the next generation with humans. Leanie was stunned for a moment when she heard this, then she reached out and touched Shirley's forehead and said, are you okay, Shirley? When is it this time? Do you want to give birth to him? You can fall in love first, fall in love. After a slight pause, Leanie said with anticipation again. Moreover, their attitude towards us mermaids is very good. I can feel that they really treat us as equal intelligent life. This is very rare among human beings. At the same time, I guess, their Donquixote family must be very powerful on the sea. If we have their protection, can we also go to the sea to see and live? Woolen cloth? The residents of the Fishmen Island may be because they can't ask for it. In short, most of them yearn for life on the sea. This may also be the reason why the girls of the mermaid tribe always like to go to the sea to find humans to marry after they are 30 years old. However, during this period, they generally conceal their racial identities. If their children do not have the appearance of mermaids, they will most likely continue to live on the surface of the sea. And if something unexpected happens, they are discovered, and they are not accepted, they will take their children and return to the Fishmen Island. Or. The Fishmen Island has a lot of orphan groups. Many of the 100,000 Murlocs in Murloc Street came from this way. Would you like to go to the sea and have a look? Shirley had some expectation in his eyes. In fact, her dream is to open a mermaid cafe on the sea, where human beings and compatriots can become guests together. But obviously, for Shirley, this dream was not realistic, so part of it was cut. Anyway, keep going, Shirley, Leanie said excitedly. Meanwhile, on Murloc Street, Fisher Tiger's home. A Murloc with a strong physique and a jagged nose was sitting on the sofa opposite Tiger. But judging from his well-behaved sitting posture, one can tell that he must respect Tiger very much. Brother Tiger, do you have any orders for me? The Murloc asked curiously. Tiger smiled and said, Arlong, I have a friend who is a pirate. He hopes to recruit some crew members from our Murlocs. I think you are very suitable. That's right, the Murloc in front of him happens to be Shirley's brother, Arlong. Wait, boss. Arlong was stunned for a moment, and then quickly said, you mean that he is not our compatriot, right? Yes, he is human. Tiger said immediately. Arlong looked hesitant when he heard that. But only hesitation. Because Tiger has not had problems yet, such as being captured by humans as a slave, and later betrayed to death by humans. So Arlong wasn't that extreme racist either. But to be honest, he still doesn't like humans. Mainly because he thinks humans are weak. Seeing Arlong's hesitant expression, Tiger said earnestly, his name is Donquixote Doflamingo, he is a very powerful human being, and I have talked with him for a long time. I can feel his kindness towards us. Murloc Street can't go on like this forever, you know, Arlong. Maybe in the future, we will see a turnaround from him. In the first half of the Grand Line, Eni's Lobby, the island that never sleeps, is known as one of the 3 fortresses of justice. At this time, in the commander's office of the Eni's Lobby administration building, a middle-aged man was standing respectfully beside an empty desk. And on that desk, There was a phone bug, who seemed to be talking about something. It's not a top secret matter, so I'll tell you as well. The Doflamingo who asked you to find him this time was also a world nobleman. In short, Spandane, you have to do things well and let him know I really know who gave him the gift he wanted. On the other side of the phone bug, a voice full of majesty said. That's right. The man standing by the desk at this moment is none other than the commander of CP9, Spandane. Yes, Lord Five Elders, Spandane replied quickly. The person who called the caller was Voshulashung, but Spandane didn't dare to call him by his first name, and usually referred to these 5 big bosses as Master Five Elders. Well, we are still very relieved when you handle the matter. In short, the speed must be fast. Saint Vochuli warned again. Then, before Spandane could say anything, he hung up the phone. And Spandane stood quietly by the phone bug for 2 minutes. Seeing that the phone bug was really quiet, he hurried forward to put his own phone bug away. Then, he immediately walked to his huge file cabinet, and began to search for the information about Doflamingo according to the order. After a while, he found out Doflamingo's information. While sitting on the office chair, he pressed the button on the table again, and ordered directly to the button. As quickly as possible, find out the current whereabouts of Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo, and after confirmation, immediately report to me. Yes, Lord Spandane. A speaker on the table responded immediately. Spandane didn't continue to say anything, but read Doflamingo's information. In fact, Spandane doesn't know much about Doflamingo, and he hasn't paid much attention to him recently, because apart from this matter, he is also in charge of an important project, which is to hunt down a group of mysterious people on the sea. Scholars investigate this matter about the historical texts they are studying. However, after such a long time, Spandane has not found any special clues so far, so he can only investigate slowly. As a result, I suddenly received a new task today, and it was personally instructed by 5 elders. Ask him to contact and meet Donquixote Doflamingo as quickly as possible, and grant him the status of 7 warlords of the sea. And to inform Doflamingo that the 5 elders specifically approved him to be the 7 warlords of the sea. Spandane is a careful person, and 5 elders also said that Doflamingo was celestial dragons back then. Although the meaning of this statement is not very obvious, why did 5 elders say this alone? And, judging from the current task, it is obvious that the 5 adults on Marie Joyce seem to appreciate and value this Doflamingo. He has the blood of celestial dragons himself. If he can be favored by the 5 elders, he will be able to do so in the future. Maybe one day, they will become celestial dragons again. Then Spandane had to carefully consider his attitude towards Doflamingo. The more Spandane studied Doflamingo's information, the more he was surprised. Obviously, this boss is not a simple person. Just as Spandane was thinking about how to complete the task perfectly, the microphone on his desk flickered twice, and Spandane tapped the button on the desk without raising his head. Immediately, the voice of the CP9 agent came from the speaker and said, Sir Spandane, according to the latest information, Donquixote Doflamingo is currently located in the Fishmen Island. We have contacted our team in the Fishmen Island. The intelligence point has confirmed the sighting information. The Fishmen Island. Spandane was stunned for a moment, and then said, It seems that he is going to enter the New World. When he gets to the New World, it will be hard to find, but fortunately we have Ida S not too far from the Fishmen Island. In this way, you can arrange to let the people at Sabodi Archipelago start coding quickly, and then we will set off there, to the Fishmen Island. Eni's lobby is not far from Sabodi Archipelago itself, plus you can directly take the Justice Current and go to Naval Headquarters Marineford through the Gate of Justice. If starting from Naval Headquarters, go to Sabodi Archipelago, less than 2 hours away. And if there happens to be a spare ship that has been coded over there, it can be said that if we set off now, Spandane will be able to arrive at the Fishmen Island as soon as tomorrow morning. What is efficiency? This is efficiency. Soon, Spandane read the information about Doflamingo and Donquixote family, and muttered. So, once Donquixote family enters the New World, there will inevitably be a fierce conflict with the Big Mom pirates. It seems that the 5 adults seem to be he looks very confident in Doflamingo, so the reason why he is so anxious to grant him the status of 7 warlords of the sea is probably because he wants to use this opportunity to make the name of 7 warlords of the sea in one fell swoop, right? I have to say that Spandane is still very capable and smart, much stronger than his sand sculpture son. And his analysis is correct. The current New World is indeed still a battle for hegemony, but since Roger was executed and Shaki was captured to Impelton, compared to the previous situation, New World, the situation is indeed gradually becoming clearer. First of all, there is no doubt that there is only one pirate who can be called the overlord of the New World, and that is Whitebeard A. Edward Newgate. Whether it's Kaido, Charlotte Linlin, or Silver Axe, the Big Wine Barrel, the evil king, etc., they all challenge the Whitebeard pirates. But they haven't won once, so the Whitebeard pirates are the strongest. It can be said to be the unique, first echelon. As for the structure of the four emperors in the original story, it is still early. At least wait until Whitebeard gets older and his status declines, Kaido and Charlotte Linlin grow up again, and Shanks, who is cheating, becomes famous. Groups will form the so-called Four Emperors pattern. Before that, Shiki lay flat, Roger died, and Whitebeard was the strongest in New World. No one can sit on an equal footing with him. As for the pirates in the second echelon, they are the ones mentioned just now, such as Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Silver Sparrow, Wooden Winebarrel, and the Political Lord. This is also the group of people who are currently fighting the most fiercely in the New World. Obviously, the follow-up winners are Charlotte Linlin, Kaido. Silver Axe is half of them. Let Blackbeard a teach to Karma. And the Evil King, the Big Winebarrel, etc., are all the losers in this round of the second echelon competition. They are either overthrown by their opponents or by Marine. Basically, they all go to Impel Down. He went to prison for advanced studies. For a newly established organization and force, 5 elders and others do not expect 7 warlords of the sea to be able to fight endlessly with a big shot like Whitebeard as soon as they appear on the stage. That's not realistic at all. Naval Headquarters hasn't been able to handle Whitebeard for so many years. Therefore, in the expectations of the world government, 7 warlords of the sea's target is actually the current silver medalist, and Charlotte Linlin is undoubtedly a representative figure among the silver medalists. As long as Doflamingo can fight Charlotte Linlin in New World as 7 warlords of the sea, even if he does not hope that Doflamingo will win, as long as the situation can be maintained in a good state, it is all right for the world government enough already. Enough to make a name for 7 warlords of the sea. In the follow-up, we will recruit some more powerful guys, and gradually we can make 7 warlords of the sea bigger and stronger, and become a trump card of the world government in the short-term situation. After understanding this point, Spandane couldn't delay any longer. He had to give Doflamingo his identity as the 7 warlords of the sea before he entered the New World and started the battle with the Big Mom pirates. In this case, it will be good for publicity when the time comes. Act as you say, and as a practical man, Spandane immediately picked up his coat from the hanger, put a batch on his shoulders, went out and said to the 2 little agents who were guarding the door of his office, "Quick, quick, prepare the boat, and send a message to the Gate of Justice, saying that I will pass through Marineford and let them prepare to open the gate." At this time, on the Fishmen Island, Doflamingo was holding a phone bug, dialed out according to the signal wave record on it. "My lord?" The phone bug was quickly connected, and Torbol's sticky voice came over. Not to mention, I haven't heard this voice for a long time. Although I still have some physical discomfort, I still miss Doflamingo. "Torbol. How's it going with North Blue?" Doflamingo asked with a smile. Torbol responded with a smile. "Everything is running smoothly. Quinn and Guy have developed a batch of weapons production lines that are practical and can be put into mass production, and are on par with the current mainstream technology of arms. They have already started operation. Pika has established a new mining department and acquired some deep mining areas that are not easy to develop. Lao Ji is currently taking over the work of the youth training camp. It's also very good." In this way, in detail, it took Torbol a long time to report the situation of North Blue to Doflamingo. Generally speaking, there is no problem. Donquixote family's business has expanded again. Torbol estimates that this year's net profit should reach 40 billion pele. Doflamingo has nothing to say about this. Torbol has arranged everything very well. For op fruit, keep an eye on it, don't delay, and arrange some people to investigate the price difference between the Fishmen Islanda's special products and the sea surface. Lita S monopolize the Fishmen Islanda's special products resources. Finally, how to maximize the profit plan. Doflamingo also began to assign tasks to Torbol in detail. Although Doflamingo is very sure that once he incorporates the Fishmen Island into his trading system, he will definitely make a lot of money, but he still needs to make plans and preparations first, so that he can draw a clear result from the data. Such things are more convincing. The Fishmen Island, the forest of the sea. This is the seabed forest, and it is also the place where ordinary pirates land, and more, it is the broken ships that were carried here by the deep ocean current. Most of these dilapidated ships were destroyed on the way to the Fishmen Island because of coding problems, or encountering some powerful sea beasts, sea kings, etc. Over time, the more ships destroyed, the more piled up, and this place has also evolved into a cemetery for ships. Doflamingo is here at this time. He got up early this morning, and under the leadership of Shirley, he came to Hajisen and visited Master Tom's younger brother, Mr. Dan. Mr. Dan lives in Hajisen. He is a scholar and a shipwright. Through the remains of these ships, he has studied many cultures on the sea, and because he often repairs ships, he has become an excellent shipwright. Originally, Doflamingo was thinking about recruiting him as his shipwright, but it turned out that he didn't want to leave the Fishman Island. It is worth mentioning that Master Tom is a strong man of the Murlocs, but his younger brother Dan is of the blood of the mermaids. But these are normal things for the Fishman Island. It's in their genes. Then ask your excellency to coat us, Doflamingo said while shaking Dan's hand. He was unsuccessful in getting the guy out, but he offered to help Doflamingo coat the ship. As the shipbuilder of Hajisen, Dan's craft is still very good. After all, he has helped some pirates who smuggled in here to coat them, telling them to go to New World as soon as possible. Please rest assured, I will definitely do this carefully, Dan said with a smile. Hey, I just described our ship, so how long will it take? Duo Ying Lang Ming asked. The coating technology of the Fishman Island is not the same as that of Sabodi Archipelago, and the coating environment is also different. Generally speaking, it is much faster than Sabodi Archipelago. I haven't seen the real thing yet, but according to the description, it is estimated that it should take 5 to 6 days, right? If there is any change, I will contact you again, Dan said politely. Then thank you again. Doflamingo thanked again. No way, this coating is a matter of personal wealth and life. Anyway, Doflamingo has always respected this kind of technicians, otherwise if they are not allowed to make a move, you will be gone. After leaving Sea Forest, Shirley asked, where are you going next? Dragon Palace City, Doflamingo said without hesitation. Dragon Palace City, Shirley exclaimed. The ones there are protected by the guards, and no one is allowed to enter unless invited. Early this morning, I arranged for Beckman and the others to say hello. If King Neptune is a smart man, he should be able to enter when I pass by, Doflamingo said with a smile. Shirley doesn't know much about things on the sea, and she doesn't know much, so she doesn't understand the meaning behind Doflamingo's identity, Donquixote family and so on. But at this time Doflamingo said confidently that she could meet Neptune, which probably gave her some insight. If Doflamingo can really meet His Majesty Neptune in this way, it means that his power and identity are at least equal to their kings of the Fishman Island. From Shirley's point of view, this is already a big shot. Soon, under the leadership of Shirley, Doflamingo came to Dragon Palace City. Dragon Palace City is actually not difficult to find, because no matter where you are on the Fishman Island, as long as you stand a little higher and have a wider view, you can always see it. After all, Dragon Palace City can be said to be the most imposing palace city in the entire the Fishman Island. The building is magnificent and surrounded by dragons, it is really a mighty hockey. Even Doflamingo, who is well informed, thinks this design is really powerful. At this time, at the gate of Dragon Palace City, there was indeed a team of guards waiting here. As soon as Doflamingo and Shirley came over, the guards immediately stepped forward and said, Master Doflamingo, I have been waiting for you for a long time, His Majesty Neptune is waiting for your arrival. Shirley was even more surprised by the respectful attitude of the guards. But Doflamingo was not surprised, and nodded with a smile, then please lead the way. Unlike the vast majority of the Fishman Island environments, Miyagi is almost entirely submerged in seawater. So before Doflamingo goes in, he has to get into the bubble ball first. He was led all the way through the corridors and courtyards of Dragon Palace City, and finally, in a reception hall, Doflamingo saw the huge Neptune. Neptune was eating and drinking with someone at this time, and that person was Virgo, Beckman, and Senor. It can be seen that they get along very well, especially Beckman and Neptune are almost brothers. Young master. Senor was the first to see Doflamingo and hurriedly greeted him. Beckman and Virgo also stood up together. In front of outsiders, they still gave Doflamingo, the young master, a lot of face. Neptune also looked at Doflamingo at this time, with a look of curiosity and scrutiny in his eyes. Beside Neptune, there was only one guard, a cute-looking fat blue man. There is no doubt that it is Neptune's current Dragon Palace Guard Captain of Section Jinbei. Your Excellency Doflamingo, welcome to the Fishman Island, welcome to Dragon City. Yang Putan spoke first. Doflamingo was also very polite, nodded elegantly to Neptune, and responded, It's a pleasure to meet you, King of the Fishman Island, Master of Dragon Palace, Your Majesty Neptune. Naturally, there is no room for Shirley to speak here. She was as quiet as a little transparent at this moment. Not far away Beckman beckoned, and she hurried over. Soon, Doflamingo was seated, and the seafood delicacies that were originally very expensive in the Fishman Island could be eaten in Dragon Palace City. Master Tom's letter of introduction. Mr. Beckman has given it to me before, and I have read it, Neptune said after having a drink with Doflamingo. It seems that Master Tom is really respected in the Fishman Island, Doflamingo said with a smile. Yeah, He is the best shipwright in the Fishmen Island, and a scholar, Neptune said with emotion. That's true. Don't look at Master Tom's rough and crazy appearance, but in fact, he is a big guy who can invent the epic-making technology, Sea Train, and he can also be regarded as a scientist with cutting-edge technology, so he is called a scholar. Not only is it not excessive, it is even modest. After feeling emotional for a while, Neptune continued. Originally, he could have stayed in the Fishmen Island, but I don't know what happened. After he went to study in the capital of 7 waters, he never came back. Doflamingo doesn't know what the inside story is, but based on the original impression, it is estimated that on the one hand, the shipbuilding technology of the capital of 7 waters is indeed more and more powerful than that of the Fishmen Island, so Master Tom stated it is normal to learn from others' strong points there. On the other hand, it may be because Master Tom inexplicably got the blueprint of ancient weapon Pluto when he arrived in the capital of 7 waters, so he felt that this thing was very dangerous. One day, there will be a lot of trouble there, so he finally decided to live in the capital of 7 waters for a long time? Of course, there may be many other reasons, and it is meaningless and valuable to guess these. Your Excellency originally wanted to get recommendations from me and recruit some good guys from the Fishmen Island to be the crew, right? But I heard from Mr. Beckman that Tiger from Murloc Street already arranged these things for you? Neptune asked with a smile. Yes, I originally wanted to come here to ask you, but now it seems that it is unnecessary, so this time, it is just a simple visit, hoping to form a friendship with you. Doflamingo said with a smile. Ha 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 ha, then I feel very honored. Neptune said with a big laugh. He will not have any prejudice against Doflamingo because of his identity as a pirate. In the early years, Neptune still had some, but later, he became good friends with Kuhuzzy, Roger and others. Naturally, I also know that there are many types of pirates. Like Doflamingo, since he came to the Fishmen Island, he has been very peaceful, and he didn't say anything about bullying men, bullying women, or causing damage. Obviously, he is a moderate seaman like Roger and Whitebeard, thief. The so-called many friends and multiple paths, Upton is naturally willing to be friends with a capable person like Doflamingo. I heard from Mr. Beckman that Donquixote family's business is doing very well, and you just happen to be interested in cooperating with us, the Fishmen Island. Neptune asked suddenly after chatting for a few words. Doflamingo took a sip of the royal wine from Dragon Palace City, and the taste was really good, with a sea flavor. Then, he nodded and said, "That's right, but brother, before we talk about this matter, we should first talk about the crisis that the Fishmen Island is about to face right now." The crisis that the Fishmen Island is about to face. Neptune was stunned for a moment, but soon he seemed to think of something, and his expression sank. Has the situation on the sea developed to an unstoppable level? Yes, among other things, according to some of my internal channels, the world government has calculated the growth rate of pirates in the first quarter since Roger's execution. Compared with the same quarter last year, the number of pirates has increased more than 70%, and judging from the situation I have traveled along the way, it is really not very good. I am walking fast, so I came early, but it is estimated that in half a year at the latest, the Fishmen Island will face a large number of people. The problem of pirate infestation. Doflamingo said seriously. The pirates want to go to the New World, but it is impossible to pass through Marie Joy's, so they can only go to the Fishmen Island. Therefore, the Fishmen Island is the only passage for the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line to enter the New World, and it is also the only way they must pass, so this follow-up situation is almost a foregone conclusion. Talking about this kind of topic, the atmosphere really became dull. Neptune took a sip of his wine with some displeasure, and then said, "It seems that we have to prepare early." Having said that, he turned his head and glanced at Jinbei at the side and said, "Jinbei." "I'm here, Your Majesty." Jinbei responded immediately. "Tomorrow, I want to meet Tiger and invite him to Dragon Palace City," Neptune said after thinking about it. Jinbei is Tiger's younger brother, who came out of Murloc Street, and later joined the guard of Dragon Palace, and became the captain of Neptune's guard by virtue of his strong strength. "Boss Tiger." Jinbei was stunned for a moment, but he nodded quickly and said, "Yes, I understand. When I go back tonight, I will tell Boss Tiger." Neptune nodded, then looked at Doflamingo and said, "That. Your Excellency Doflamingo, I'm ashamed to say it. I have something I want to ask for your help." Doflamingo frowned and said, "King Neptune, please speak." "Our military armed forces on the Fishmen Island have always been relatively weak," Neptune said with a little embarrassment. "In fact, this is indeed the case. Because of being on the bottom of the sea, the development of firearms on the Fishmen Island is very slow, or it may be because of the great gap with the sea surface. Anyway, there is generally no problem a good channel to obtain arms. As one of the allied countries under the government of the world, and ordinary Murlocs have 10 times the power of humans, but the military power of the Fishmen Island is really impressive. And maybe because of more complicated reasons, it is impossible for Hampton to truly liberate the huge but very chaotic power of Murloc Street. Otherwise, the dangerous consequences brought about by this may be even more terrifying than the scourge of pirates. Doflamingo said very understandingly. I see, I understand, King Neptune. Do you want to buy arms from us? Although I don't know if the Donquixote family is involved in the arms business, I believe that you have more and more convenient channels to buy arms than our Dragon Palace city, Neptune said helplessly. Then, without waiting for Doflamingo to speak, Neptune continued, of course, we are not the kind of brazen people. If the Donquixote family can help us buy a large amount of arms, our Dragon Palace city will also have a small fortune. Humble. So King Humble. As an intelligent race with a long history, a royal family that has stood on the bottom of the sea for an unknown number of years, Dragon Palace City is not only a small fortune. If this wealth can be converted on the sea surface, it is said that Neptune is the most a rich king is no exaggeration. Look at the dining table. The plates used to hold some food. The sides are inlaid with exquisite deep-sea pearls, precious jade and so on. Simply inhumane. Doflamingo immediately smiled and said, this matter is really a coincidence. Our Donquixote family has built several military production lines in North Blue, which can produce everything from cold weapons to first-class artillery technology. This matter, it was just 2 days ago that it was fully implemented. I was still thinking about where we need to receive a large order so that our production line can run at full capacity. I didn't expect to come across the Fishmen Island. Meet your needs. Upon hearing this, Neptune said happily, that's really great. If we need it urgently, our Donquixote family can also purchase a certain amount of arms in the Dark World first, and send them to the Fishmen Island as quickly as possible. Doflamingo said. Although the production line has been completed now, it will take a certain amount of time to start construction, production, and transportation. By that time, the Fishmen Island is probably already suffering. Instead of that, it is better to buy a batch of finished products from the Dark World first. Neptune also thought the same way, and the two sides hit it off immediately, and Neptune entrusted Doflamingo with carte blanche to help arrange this matter, and he was only responsible for paying the money. After talking about this matter, Neptune took the initiative to bring up the matter mentioned at the beginning, which is the business between Donquixote family and the Fishmen Island. Yes, the richness of materials in the sea world and the underwater world are completely different, and the cultural differences are also the same. For example, the dinner plate you are using now, King Neptune, maybe in the Fishmen the island can only be regarded as a high-end handicraft, but placed on the sea, it will become a luxury sought after by many nobles. Such a plate can be sold for hundreds of thousands or millions of pele, more than enough. Doflamingo picked up the most common dinner plate. This dinner plate is inlaid with a large number of broken pearls. Judging from the workmanship, it should be under the sea. No, the Fishmen Island's unique deep-sea cold pressing technology, coupled with the royal craftsmen of Shanglong Palace City, personally put it on a draw pattern or something. To be honest, it is a handicraft on the Fishmen Island, but on the sea, it is indeed a luxury. Doflamingo quickly cites numerous other examples. Finally, it comes to the Fishmen Island. In this way, the people of the Fishmen Island can also be benefited. For example, the price of materials on the sea, which are very expensive now, will definitely be lowered quickly after the exchange of availability. Doflamingo said immediately. How many people are there in the Fishmen Island? Doflamingo has done his best, so give him an estimate of 500,000 people. Isn't it that amazing? How big is this market? It's not big, and if you want to really make a lot of money, the Fishmen Island should not be defined as a market, but should be defined as a producer. The market should be a more ambitious sea world with countless islands. Therefore, as long as they communicate with each other, the Fishmen Island's demand for resources on the sea can be easily met. When the market is saturated, the price of materials will drop rapidly, which is completely predictable. In this respect, it can be regarded as a favor to the people of the Fishmen Island. Originally, they would need hundreds of thousands of baileys or even more to eat a special meal on the sea. Now it is a normal price. Isn't that a good thing? Neptune also kept agreeing with Doflamingo's suggestion in his heart. In fact, it's not that he hasn't thought about this kind of thing. It can even be said that he has thought about it a long time ago. It's just that there is no suitable partner who can complete this idea with him. First of all, Neptune does not have many connections with the sea surface. It can be said that the Fishmen Island is isolated under the deep sea, even if it is a member country of the world government, that the connection between the two parties, can't say there is no, but it is true very scarce. The Fishmen Island has not participated in the World Summit on Marie Joyce for more than 200 years, which is an obvious situation. Coupled with the overt and covert oppression of the Fishmen Island by the government of the world, and the frequent arrest of their people as slaves, Even if Neptune wanted to cooperate, the public opinion would not agree. Then, from Neptune's friends, he does not have many friends on the sea. Roger counts as one, and Whitebeard counts as one. They are all powerful, but Roger is dead, and Whitebeard is rampant in New World. But the whole Whitebeard pirates, there is no channel to do business. It's embarrassing and totally impossible to cooperate with. Now, there is a Donquixote family, which really makes Neptune feel a little bit excited. However, there are also concerns. The purchase of arms just now was all sneaky. This kind of thing is normal, and it is nothing if it is discovered. Doing business with pirates all over the world, making them bigger and stronger, is not something that can be fooled casually. Especially the world government itself is eyeing the Fishmen Island. If they really find some excuse to make a fuss about the Fishmen Island, then it will be a big trouble. Neptune was also an honest man. He didn't say he wanted to hang Doflamingo, so he naturally informed the young master of his concerns. After listening to Doflamingo, he said with a smile, "This problem, I will start to solve it soon. I guarantee that the business between the Fishmen Island and our Donquixote family will not be faulty in terms of law." Oh. Neptune was a little surprised. Seeing Doflamingo's confident appearance, he always felt a little unreliable. But of course he couldn't question it directly, otherwise it would be too much and impolite, so he thought for a while and said, "Then I can't say nothing, Your Excellency Doflamingo. I, Neptune, in the name of the King of the Fishmen Island, I assure you that if the Donquixote family can solve these problems legally, we, the Fishmen Island, will fully support our trade cooperation." Doflamingo immediately said no problem. When 7 warlords of the sea is in hand, these will not be a problem. At that time, let alone doing business with Neptune in the Fishmen Island, he is going to be the king of Dressrosa. As long as he operates properly, he can also legally ascend to the throne. Maybe he can go to Marie Joy's to participate in the next World Summit Woolen Cloth. While the few people were chatting, laughing, drinking, and eating, suddenly, the left minister of Dragon Palace City rushed in, ignoring the presence of Doflamingo and others, and directly said to Neptune, "Your Majesty, emergency situation. There is a ship from the world government, has entered the Coral Hill. A team of officials from the world government is rushing to our Dragon Palace City." Neptune was stunned for a moment. The last time this happened was many years ago. At that time, he had just succeeded to the king of the Fishmen Island. As one of the allied countries under the government of the world, Marie Joyce naturally sent a ceremonial. The officer came to say hello. "It has been many years now. I didn't expect that the world government would send someone here again today. What are they coming for? Did you tell me?" Neptune asked in a deep voice. Minister Zuo hesitated for a moment, looked at Doflamingo and said, "They said they came to see Lord Don Quixote Doflamingo." "Doflamingo? What does this have to do with me? I haven't provoked the world government recently, have I?" But he didn't panic, because if he had malicious intentions, it should be Marine, not Marie Joy's officials. Strange, could it be that my eldest cousin died of illness suddenly, and no one in the family can take charge of the overall situation, so you want me to go back and restore the identity of celestial dragons? To inherit the position of Patriarch of Don Quixote? Doflamingo dreamed with some doubts in his heart. Neptune thought for a while, then looked at Doflamingo and said, "Then shall I go to meet you first?" Doflamingo can be unruly because he is a pirate. But Neptune is the king of franchises, and with Marie Joyce coming up, he has to put on a show. Doflamingo nodded immediately and said, "Then I will trouble you." "It should be." Neptune responded, and then quickly left the living room with Minister Zuo. As soon as he left, Beckman also asked curiously, "Dover, what happened to the people on Marie Joy's looking for you?" Doflamingo picked up the wine glass from the table, took a sip, and thought about it. "I don't want to understand. Senor, Virgo, have we provoked them recently?" "No." Virgo immediately shook his head and said, "After Logue Town, we have not had any conflicts with the world government." Senor reported back, "That's right, last week, North Blue also made a big deal with Marie Joyce, selling 500 tons of platinum lead raw ore to them. You know, under the current situation, Frevens may explode at any time. Those who know the inside information are hoarding platinum lead ore. The Don Quixote family sold 500 tons of raw ore to the world government. The relationship is well done. And just now, I don't know if Minister Zuo modified it himself, or if he just quoted the original words. The Marie Joyce official over there used the word, meeting. I think. This shouldn't come with malice, maybe something good." Beckman pondered. Foo. Doflamingo said with a smile, "I thought so too just now. Could it be that my eldest cousin had a sudden blood attack and passed away, and now there is no one in Don Quixote family on Marie Joyce you can control the overall situation, so you specially invited me back? Blood vessel disease is a hereditary disease within the Celestial Dragons group. How should I put it? The bloodline of celestial dragons is very pure. Basically, the descendants of the 20 kings continue to intermarry with each other, and the pure blood born can be called celestial dragons. As for the rest, for example, if celestial dragons have a child with a slave, it is impossible to become celestial dragons. For dragons, if they meet parents who are in a good mood and are more kind, they may reward him with a noble status, and then they will be sent somewhere to hang out. If they meet such ruthless ones, they will be killed together with the slaves. For them, celestial dragons who are not pure blood are not of the same species as them at all, so kill them if you kill them. Although there are quite a few descendants of the 20 kings, after hundreds of years of intermarriage, they are basically close relatives, so blood diseases often occur among celestial dragons. Also, most celestial dragons will look dumb because of it. But in the same way, close relatives are also prone to some extremely gifted geniuses, and most of these people will be included in the Knights of God. Of course, basically blood diseases will show up before adulthood. Celestial dragons usually don't have so many worries after adulthood. In this way, there are quite a few little celestial dragons who die every year because of this. Take the Donquixote family as an example. It took hundreds of years to reproduce. So far, there are only dozens of pure blood healthy celestial dragons in a family. Speaking of this, I have to mention some restrictions that have been relaxed due to blood diseases and other reasons in the past few decades. That is, the celestial dragons family will also take the initiative to absorb some non-celestial dragons' elites and talents. In other words, over the past few decades, there have been 20 celestial dragons whose queens have drawn their blood. In the original story, an incarnation of Dr. Vegapunk wanted to become celestial dragons. Saboa's younger brother, who became the king of the Goa kingdom, also asked Garp how to become celestial dragons. It can also be seen from this that among the celestial dragons group, there are also some far-sighted people, otherwise, they will continue to hold on to the so-called pure blood. There is no need for any impact from the outside world. Celestial dragons should completely abolish themselves. After all those born with genetic diseases are either born with brain damage, or are lunatics, or will not live to reach adulthood. If this is the case, can they still be called gods? Ha 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 eh. As soon as Doflamingo finished speaking, Beckman and others burst out laughing. Only Shirley looked at them in confusion, not quite understanding what they were laughing at. What Marie Joyce? What patriarch? As a girl from the Fishmen Island, Shirley doesn't know Marie Joyce at all, and she doesn't know anything about celestial dragons. At the same time, Upton was already waiting outside the gate of Dragon Palace. Soon, a team of officials from the world government arrived at the gate of Dragon Palace. The leader is none other than the commander of CP9, Spandane. But that kind of identity is invisible, so Spandane's official identity at this time is the special angel of the world government. It's an honor to meet you, Your Majesty Neptune, Spandane greeted politely. However, Neptune could feel that although the officials of the world's government were very courteous, there was still an obvious feeling of superiority in their tone and eyes. In fact, this is the status of the Fishmen Island. But speaking of it, the senior agents who were born in CP don't pay much attention to the princes and nobles of the franchise countries. At the age of 13, Rob Lucci slaughtered his soldiers in front of the royal family, and said that such soldiers did not deserve to live. Later, in the World Summit chapter, the people in the CP agency didn't give face to the franchised royal families. As the leader of CP9, a top agent, and the existence of being able to communicate directly with 5 elders, Spanda, it is normal for him to look down on mere fish. Although Neptune was upset, he still couldn't get angry. After all, Spandane's actions on the surface were very thoughtful. Too lazy to talk nonsense with Neptune, Spandane quickly said, "It's like this, we are here this time to meet with Mr. Don Quixote Doflamingo and talk about." Speaking of this, Spandane directly sold off, ignoring Humpton's curious eyes and saying, "I don't know Mr. Doflamingo." Ah. Neptune was upset, but he still said, "Your Excellency Doflamingo is visiting Dragon Palace, please come with me." Spandane nodded and said, "Then I will trouble you, Your Majesty." Soon, the group of them, led by Neptune, came to the reception room where Doflamingo was. As soon as Neptune entered the door, he greeted, "Your Excellency Doflamingo, these are envoys sent by the world government, and they said they wanted to talk to you about something important." Neptune hadn't finished talking here, and Spandine, who had been lukewarm to him just now, had already bent his waist, rubbed his hands, and turned into a very humble dog's leg, in front of. "Greetings from Jushu, Master Doflamingo, do you still remember me?" Spandane leaned towards Doflamingo and said as if he was licking a dog. Doflamingo? He does know the identity of Spandane and has an impression of him, but it is based on the memory of his previous life. If he really wants to say, "remember him," Doflamingo just wants to ask. Have we met? Seeing that Doflamingo asked such a question with doubts on his face, Spandane was not only not angry, but also said as expected. Master, you don't remember that it's normal for a humble person like me. My name is Spandadine. When you were young, I had the honor to be your carriage pedal in Marie Joy's. Doflamingo's face twitched for a moment. Boy, is there such a thing? When he was young, because of his height, it must have been inconvenient for him to get on a car. It's normal to have such pedals. But who the hell remembers his own pedals? Doflamingo here is very ignorant, and Neptune not far away is even more ignorant. What's the situation? Why was that high-ranking official from the world government just now being so polite to Doflamingo? No, he was being polite to me, right? Doflamingo is simply humble. Does Doflamingo have any special identity? Isn't he a pirate? Why would the officials of the world government treat a pirate like this? Soon, Doflamingo came back to his senses. Looking at Spandane's enthusiastic eyes, he was a little shocked, but he quickly got used to this feeling, and said, so that's how it turned out that we had. Have you ever had such a fate? Yes, it is also thanks to your kick, young master. It seems to have enlightened me. Since then, I have been on the Marie Joy's smoothly. No, I can barely be regarded as an official now. Spanda because he flattered again. Doflamingo rubbed his chin, smiled and asked. Then, I wonder what you are going to do to find me, a pirate, on behalf of Marie Joy's this time. Master, don't underestimate yourself. Although you have left Marie Joy's, our loyal old servants have always kept you in our hearts. Spandane said with a look of, I am very loyal. Old servant. Why didn't I remember that you were a servant of the Donquixote family? And, if you remember me, why haven't you contacted me for so many years? Of course, Doflamingo didn't intend to expose Spandane, a thick-skinned guy, and nodded as if he was very pleased. Don't make a fuss, just explain why you are here. Cough. Spandane's expression became more serious now. He cleared his throat, and said in a deep voice, Master, you are such an outstanding talent. No matter where you are, you will shine brightly. So, the 5 adults on Marie Joy's noticed your brilliance very early on. They have been observing and admiring your feat, young master. No, I heard that you intend to become 7 warlords of the sea. Topman Wharf Chu Lisheng quickly ordered me to wait and come here to finish this matter for you. Is Doflamingo really surprised this time, Topman Vachuli Street? Isn't that the martial arts from 5 elders? I vaguely remember that when he came to Donquixote family as a guest, Doflamingo even pulled his beard. Following Spandane's narration, Doflamingo probably understood what was going on now. It seems that the 5 elders still have a strong control over Marie Joy's. They just got through the relationship a little bit and made some small moves on Marie Joy's to promote themselves to become 7 warlords of the sea. It turned out that the 5 elders knew everything at once. But this is also normal. From Doflamingo's point of view, the matter on Marie Joy's is probably only the option of 5 elders wanting to know about it, and there is no option of hiding it. As long as they want to know, they must be able to know. Otherwise, I am too sorry for their so-called supreme power. The 5 elders have been in power for more than 20 years just in the years Doflamingo is remembered. In the future, there will still be 5 of them. In the past, he didn't ask when he was young, and it's not easy to ask now. 5 elders. Maybe they are all old monsters who have lived for an unknown number of years. After so many years, if you can't even handle your own basic disc, then don't mess around. Now to note, not these. But this time Spandane came to look for him, some meanings and influences behind it. Spandane was specially commissioned by the legal Valkyrie, Topman Vouchery, to do this. What does this mean? It means that Doflamingo's trajectory at this time has deviated greatly from the original story. In the original story, Doflamingo only wanted to become 7 warlords of the sea a few years later, after the Mignon Island incident had passed. Even at that time, he didn't make much trouble outside of North Blue. Of course, Marie Joy's did not pay attention to it. He wanted to become 7 warlords of the sea, but Marine disagreed, and the government of the world looked down on him, so he repeatedly denied Doflamingo's self-recommendation. Later, Doflamingo played ruthlessly and directly robbed the heavenly gold originally delivered to Marie Joy's by the North Blue countries. As a threat, he coerced the world government to appoint him as 7 warlords of the sea. In the end, the world government could only give Doflamingo the status of 7 warlords of the sea. After obtaining this status, Doflamingo can be said to have officially expanded externally. It's different now. Doflamingo hasn't stepped into the new world yet, but the 5 elders have paid attention to him, and it seems that they are still optimistic about him. After all, in this situation, as long as Doflamingo's brain is not broken, he can understand. This is the 5 elders, expressing kindness to him. Don't you want to be 7 warlords of the sea? Then I will give you the identity of 7 warlords of the sea. Go ahead and continue to roam the sea, and let us see how far you can go. The first investment has been made. As long as Doflamingo does not stretch his hips, 5 elders will definitely be able to raise their hands to help them when they need them in the future, right? Those aren't really things to ponder, though. At this time, what Doflamingo is thinking about is his attitude towards the world government and his future plan. Should he make some adjustments? No plan is ever perfect. The so-called plan can't keep up with changes, that's it. The world is changing and unexpected every moment. Maybe the perfect plan made in the last second will be completely overthrown in the next second. At this time, Doflamingo was also thinking about this kind of thing. At the beginning, he put himself and the world government in an opposition situation, and carried out deduction and layout. But now, it seems that there is a new direction. It seems that it can also reintegrate into the system of the world government. Soon, though, Doflamingo dismissed the idea. But it is true that the original plan needs to be changed. Specifically, he still needs to think about it carefully. He can't think clearly in this haste. There are thousands of thoughts, but the reality is just a moment. Doflamingo quickly came back to his senses and said, "So that's how it is. Is it Wally's care?" Span leisurely. "Forgot to convey my gratitude to Saint Vachuli for me." Spandane immediately said, "Young master, please rest assured." Doflamingo then asked again, "Then what is the process for 7 warlords of the sea now?" Cough. Spandane beckoned, and one of his younger brothers came up holding a roll of sheepskin. Spandane took the parchment and respectfully handed it to Doflamingo, saying, "This is the letter of appointment for the 7 warlords of the sea organization currently established by the world government. As long as you leave your name on this parchment, Master Doflamingo, then the contract will take effect, and from this moment on, you will become the first 7 warlords of the sea under the government of the world, and the cough. Crimes you committed on the sea in the past." When Spandane said this, he was cautious, as if he was afraid of offending Doflamingo, but it was obvious that Doflamingo didn't mind this kind of words at all. Seeing this, Spandane also continued to say, "In the past, some of your wild behaviors will be completely pardoned, and from now on, you will enjoy extrajudicial immunity." Although he already understood it in his heart, Doflamingo still smiled and said, "Fu Furfur, please explain this extrajudicial immunity in detail." Spandane immediately said, "The so-called extrajudicial immunity means that after you become 7 warlords of the sea, any pirate behavior between you and all your members will no longer be punished by law, for legal rights. In other words, from now on, Doflamingo's burning, killing and looting will be legalized, and Marine cannot target him for any of his piracy." And Doflamingo has a more thorough understanding of this. In fact, it can be said that not only piracy, but basically all laws can no longer bind the 7 warlords of the sea. Of course, it does not mean that no one cares about the 7 warlords of the sea's crimes. You are going to beat up the celestial dragons, burn the flags of the world's government, interpret the text of history, explore the history of 800 years ago, and so on. The government should mess with you or will mess with you. Therefore, this so-called pirate behavior and extrajudicial immunity are very flexible, and the definitions are all in the hands of the world government. But as long as you have enough interest and value for the world government, well, basically this extrajudicial immunity can be defined as long as you don't challenge the bottom line of the world government, you can do whatever you want. Doflamingo is not surprised by this, but the Neptunes beside him are all stupid. 7 warlords of the sea. Although he seemed to have seen this thing in the newspaper before, Neptune didn't take it seriously at the time. Now, he seems to understand the horror of 7 warlords of the sea. A pirate organization that is completely exempted from pirate behavior. If this is too indulgent, it can be said to bring great harm. What does the world government think? But he doesn't care about these things. What he's thinking about now is, before the meal, Doflamingo, who belonged to the hostile camp of the world government, seems to have become a member of the world government before the meal. In other words, all the cooperation between the Fishmen Island and 7 warlords of the sea Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo is completely reasonable and legal. Not only can he be protected by the laws of the world government, but he can even enjoy the prestige bonus of 7 warlords of the sea. No one cared about Neptune's shock. Doflamingo raised his brows and said, "Any right comes with an obligation. Being 7 warlords of the sea, you will enjoy such free power, so what is the price for staying?" Listening to Doflamingo's deep voice, Spandane swallowed a little nervously, and said softly, "The price is not worth it, Master Doflamingo." Soon, Spandine recounts the obligations of the 7 warlords of the sea. Speaking of it, it's actually nothing special. First of all, it's a compulsory convening. Generally speaking, when the world government has a place for you, it will drive the 7 warlords of the sea through transactions. Doflamingo once made a deal with the world government, and what he had to do was to kill Moria. Of course, it failed later. But in addition to this relatively mild drive, there is another item, which is the compulsory convening. At a critical moment, if the world government thinks that there is something that must send out 1 or more 7 warlords of the sea, then they will issue a compulsory summoning order to summon the master Shichibukai to die. Point 0. This kind of compulsory summoning must be accepted. Of course, if you hang up, you don't have to accept it, but the world government will deprive you of your 7 warlords of the sea status because of this. In addition to this compulsory summoning, the 7 warlords of the sea were originally obliged to privately plunder and pay tribute, that is to say, you can engage in piracy and plunder, but it was discovered by our world government, you need to pay part of the income to the world government as a tribute. But obviously, this is not marked in the parchment belonging to Doflamingo. It can be seen that his treatment is better than the rest of the 7 warlords of the sea. Then, it has not yet appeared. In the original story, the veteran 7 warlords of the sea were basically all reenacted, creating the Seraphim war weapon. Now, it is estimated that the world government has not launched this plan. After all, Vegapunk has not passed for a long time, let alone Seraphim, and the pacifists are probably not brought up. Doflamingo doesn't care about this. As far as Doflamingo knows, the ability used by Seraphim can only be the Paramecia ability generated by green blood. If he is string fruit, then he might be worried. Now he is a phantom beast, green blood has a hairy relationship with him. Doflamingo? Secondly, Doflamingo really doesn't know how the rest of the cloned 7 warlords of the sea were cloned. First of all, the possibility of being forced to extract blood is ruled out. After all, the 7 warlords of the sea should not accept this conditional. The original Doflamingo and Moria are fine. People like Mihawk and Hancock, the world government can force them to extract blood? It should be through many ways to secretly collect some blood, right? Judging from the time when Seraphim was born, Tien Yubaju is the top battle. Both Jinbei and Lao Sha went in at that time. Blood, needless to say, can be taken away at will. Before the top battle in Malinford, the remaining 7 warlords of the sea all participated in the battle. If they really made a little trick, it is not impossible. But now Doflamingo is playing with blood. He doesn't believe that the world government can get his blood. Even. He might be able to use this to open some kind of back door, with his own blood, and after providing it to the world government to study, he can directly suppress the control of Seraph through bloodline suppression? As Spandane said, compared with the power enjoyed by the 7 warlords of the sea, this price is insignificant. Doflamingo himself wanted to win the identity of 7 warlords of the sea, so he didn't hesitate at this time. Stretching out his hand, Spandane respectfully took out a pen from his pocket as if he was ready. Doflamingo took the pen, and immediately signed his name on the contract parchment. Donquixote Doflamingo. From this moment, Doflamingo changed camps again, and he has changed camps quite a lot in his life. In the beginning, celestial dragons of his world official camp lost their camp and became civilians. After the failure of the plan to restore the identity of celestial dragons, the camp was transformed into members of the Dark World. After the Cervantes incident, the camp was transformed into pirates. Now, the faction has transformed into 7 warlords of the sea, once again standing under the banner of the world government. After throwing the parchment and pen in his hand to Spandane, Doflamingo looked at Neptune, who hadn't calmed down yet, and said, "King Neptune, it seems that we are now also holding the banner of the world's government. One of them." Neptune regained his sanity slightly, looked at Doflamingo with complicated eyes and emotion, finally nodded and said, "That's it, Your Excellency Doflamingo. If that's the case, we, the Fishmen Island, will start preparations immediately. Furfurfur. Once I gain a firm foothold in New World, Quan will arrange our cooperation as soon as possible," Doflamingo said with a smile. Spandane was listening to the conversation, and was also a little curious. What's wrong with our master Doflamingo and the Fishmen Island going to cooperate? And looking at the current situation, it seems that the cooperation relationship between the two is still very close. Thinking of this, Spandane was taken aback. Oh no, wasn't his attitude towards Neptune a bit unfriendly? When Spandane learned that Doflamingo was meeting with Neptune, he didn't pay much attention to it. He can draw conclusions from intelligence and impressions from many years ago, that Doflamingo is a bad pussy guy, who walked out of Marie Joy's. Can anyone have a good attitude towards the Fishmen Island? So he even suspected at first that Doflamingo wanted to pick some beautiful mermaid maids from Neptune's palace and bring them back for fun. Anyway, I don't think Doflamingo will have any deep connection with Neptune. Therefore, even though Spandane did a good job on the surface, his eyes and demeanor still naturally showed that kind of disdainful attitude. But it's different now. Master Doflamingo seems to have a very close relationship with Neptune, and the two sides seem to have a big cooperation. This makes him feel a little embarrassed. Is it too late to make amends with the Fishmen Island and King Neptune? In fact, the reason why Doflamingo talked about the cooperation with Neptune in front of Spandine was because he used it as a platform for the Fishmen Island. Tell the government of the world, this Fishmen Island will be covered by me Doflamingo from now on. If you shouldn't be careful, don't call here. By the way, it's just selling Neptune as a favor. Soon, after chatting with Neptune for a while, Doflamingo looked at Spandane again and said, now we are our own people, right? Upon hearing this, Spandane immediately said in a doggy manner, Master, what you said, in our hearts, you have always been our own. No, it is the master. Doflamingo smiled, and did not accept Spandane's flattery, but continued, the 5 adults, do you have anything to say afterward? Spandane's expression became a little more serious when he heard the words, and he said seriously, yes, Master 5 Elders said, after this, you will enter the New World, but because of what you did before. I'm afraid New World, the big mom pirates in the world, will not let it go. So will the 5 adults send Marine to help me? Doflamingo suddenly asked with a smile. Spandane was stunned for a moment, and said with a slightly embarrassed expression, cough. This. I'm afraid. Fufuroforafor. Doflamingo smiled and raised his hand to signal Spandane to skip this topic and continue talking. Spandine also hurriedly wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and then said, Charlotte Linlin is a veteran and strong man galloping the New World, and the Big Mom pirates can also be said to be the current first-class silver medal pirates, second only to Whitebeard the kind of pirates, whether it is strength or prestige, they are very important in the hearts of the world. Doflamingo lifted his glass from the table, took a sip, and nodded to show that Spandane was right. Spandane continued, Master, if you want to gain a foothold in the New World, and gain a firm foothold, you must gain prestige. The Big Mom pirates are undoubtedly a very good choice. At the same time, this may also lead to it will be your first battle as the 7 warlords of the sea, so Master 5 Elders means. I hope you can handle things beautifully. They didn't say they want to win, and they didn't even put too much pressure on Doflamingo. They just need to do things beautifully. It can be seen that in the hearts of 5 elders, Doflamingo and Donquixote family have little chance of winning. Not to mention the 5 elders, even Spandane thinks so. After all, Charlotte Linlin is a well-known horror monster, Doflamingo. This year is only 20 years old. Whether it is the accumulation of strength and background, or the richness of combat experience, the world you have seen, and the twists and turns you have experienced, they are not at the same level at all. Spandane felt that no matter who it is, the road is taken step by step. Even if everyone is extremely talented, it is impossible to say that your strength in 1 year of practice is better than others for decades, right? That is to say, Doflamingo does not know what He is thinking. Otherwise he must tell him that it really is true that after 20 years, the Straw Hat King, who debuted for 2.5 years, can take Kaido, Charlotte Linlin and other extremely talented monsters who have ruled the sea for decades, hit on the ground. So this time, for the government of the world, as long as Doflamingo doesn't lose too badly, doesn't get killed, or is kicked out of New World, that's fine. The rest can be whitewashed by public opinion. As long as he can gain a foothold in New World, it will also be a victory for the world government. This means that, apart from Marine, in the New World, which is becoming more and more prone to loss of control and whose influence has weakened too much, the world government has reinserted a nail. At least on the surface, it belongs to the world government. What is the purpose of recruiting the 7 warlords of the sea? Isn't it to enhance the control and influence of the sea? Doflamingo raised his brows and said, I see, go back and tell the 5 adults, I will make things beautiful. To be honest, Doflamingo himself does not have absolute confidence that he will be able to win the battle against the Big Mom pirates. But he is really confident that he can lead the Donquixote family to gain a foothold in New World. How can he not be wiped out by the Big Mom pirates, right? Speaking of the Big Mom pirates, Doflamingo thought of the prison on the bottom floor of his cabin, where Charlotte Katakuri was still locked up. Originally, Doflamingo was thinking, after entering the New World, when the time is right, see if he can use Katakuri and world government to change the identity of 7 warlords of the sea or something. There is no need to think about it like this now, because before I can take any further action, the world government has already taken the initiative to send the 7 warlords of the sea over. Now there is nothing that needs the help of the world government, so it is naturally impossible to send Katakuri to the world government for nothing. Why don't you give it a try, and see if it can be used to exchange some benefits with the Big Mom pirates when the time is right. At first, Doflamingo didn't think too much about it, but now he has a new layer of concept. The value of Katakuri is far from his own value. In fact, there should be another level of calculation now. That is, Katakuri itself, to Charlotte Linlin, also represents the mystery of One Piece Roger. After all, according to Albia's original words, Katakuri was sent by her to find the secrets of the Roger pirates. Meanwhile, in the first half of the Grand Line, Naval Headquarters Marineford, Sengoku looked at Marshal Kong, who was sitting behind the desk with a dazed expression, and said, "But, didn't you say that before? Our Marine has the right to review and select 7 warlords of the sea, right? Why? Now didn't go through the procedure at all, and that Doflamingo became 7 warlords of the sea. Although there was such a consideration last time, Sengoku really hasn't weighed all the gains and losses clearly, nor has he considered clearly, should I try to make Doflamingo the master Shichibukai or not? As a result, I was eating hot pot and singing in the office today, and suddenly I was called by the marshal for an interview. Then, the news that Doflamingo bastard became 7 warlords of the sea out of nowhere made Sengoku very confused. Why is it that everyone is about to take office, and we Marine only know the news?" Marshal Kong's expression was also a bit ugly, but he could only say helplessly, "Don't worry too much, this time is a special case. The power of our Marine will not change in the subsequent selection of 7 warlords of the sea." "Why a special case?" Sengoku asked, a little unconvinced. Marshal Kong sighed a little, and said in a helpless tone, "What can I do? Saint Vachuli called me himself and told me about the matter of Doflamingo becoming 7 warlords of the sea. He has already arranged it. Just ask our Marine to cooperate. Sengoku, how can I refuse in this situation?" Sengoku was stunned for a moment. Good guy. 5 elders called the bug himself to arrange? This Doflamingo doesn't really want to restore the identity of the celestial dragons, Sengoku said with some doubts. Marshal Kong also said softly, "It was originally impossible, but with the participation of 5 elders. Who can say for sure? In short, try not to provoke this freak in the future. This guy's background is too big and his background is too deep, so Marine might not be able to grasp it. The process of Doflamingo's appointment as 7 warlords of the sea has been arranged by the world government." Spanda left Dragon Palace on the front foot, and Marie Joyce received the news of the completion of the mission on the back foot. Then the next morning, the News of the World cooperated with Marie Joyce to publish this incident as the headline of today's issue. New World, Cake Island. Charlotte Linlin, who attaches great importance to intelligence, saw this newspaper early in the morning. There are photos of Doflamingo in the newspaper. This guy is standing in front of the Dragon Palace, wearing a black suit, wearing a pink flamingo feather coat, with his signature evil smile on his face, looking handsome and elegant. Asshole. Charlotte Linlin's eyes seemed to burst into flames. Under the photos in the newspaper is the topic of news from the government of the world. According to Marie Joyce's confirmation, Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo, who previously offered a bounty of 232 million baileys, has now accepted the recruitment from the world's official government, and has taken up the post of 7 warlords of Dragon Palace in the Fishmen Island. The position of the sea. According to our agency's understanding, this is also the first big pirate who enjoys fame, prestige, and strength to take office since the 7 warlords of the sea system was promulgated. Why did the world government choose Donquixote Doflamingo to become the 7 warlords of the sea? According to our understanding of the 7 warlords of the sea system, if you want to become the 7 warlords of the sea, you must at least get the approval of naval headquarters. In other words, has Donquixote Doflamingo's strength, prestige, and status already been affirmed by Marineford? After all, the reason why Heavenly Yaksha became a pirate can be traced back to the North Blue Cervantes incident that year. How strong will Heavenly Yaksha, who had the power to rival the Admiral of Headquarters before, become now? As we all know, the Fishmen Island is the first stop to enter the New World. With the intervention of the emerging force 7 warlords of the sea in the New World, the context and pattern of the New World were quite clear. Will there be earth-shaking changes? Will 7 warlords of the sea Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo be recognized by the New World pirates? Can Don Quixote family gain a firm foothold in New World? The answer to all this is obviously not too far away. Let us wait patiently for a while. New World is about to usher in another challenger of maritime sovereignty. Violently tore up the newspaper, Charlotte Linlin said furiously, "Damn bastard. What kind of shit? 7 warlords of the sea accepted the recruitment from the world's government. Doesn't that mean that he became a lackey of the world's government? Can such awful be called a big pirate?" Mom. Perispello looked at his angry mother with some fear, and quickly comforted him. "Mom, don't get angry because of such a small person, it's not worth it at all." Charlotte Linlin raised her hand and grabbed the dessert plate on the table, stuffed a lot of desserts into her mouth indiscriminately, and said indistinctly, "The Fishmen Island. That is to say, this bastard is about to I have come to New World. My mother has been waiting for him for a long time. Go find him. No matter which line he will go after entering New World, I will know his location as soon as possible. I will crush them. Different from the first half of the Grand Line, after entering New World, there are no 7 routes. Normally, there are only 3 routes. Of course, this is for newcomers. In fact, as long as you have a permanent record pointer, you can go anywhere and how you want to go. Yes, Mom. Perispello quickly dealt with the matter. With the intelligence capabilities of the Big Mom pirates, not to mention, as long as Doflamingo shows up in New World, they will definitely know about it. Almost at the same time, Wano-kuni Onijima. Jin was tall and wrapped his whole body tightly, holding a newspaper, and walked into Kaido's main hall. At this time, the lights in the main hall were dim, and a very large and burly man could be vaguely seen lying on the floor beside the bed, and there were many wine jugs scattered around, and there was a woman in disheveled clothes on the bed. The snoring sound like thunder was coming from the drunk man's mouth. Looking at his hockey face, there is no doubt that this person is the governor of the Beasts Pirates, Kaido. Seeing Kaido in a state of drunkenness, Jin's eyes showed a little helplessness. He stepped forward, squatted in front of Kaido, and shook Kaido twice. Not only did Kaido not wake up because of this, but he followed Jin's strength, turned around on the ground, and carried it on his back. Jin's face twitched slightly, and he called out, "Big brother. Big brother." But obviously, Duo is still inaudible. After a moment of silence, Jin said in a deep voice, "Devil fruit?" As soon as he finished speaking, Kaido, who was still sleeping, suddenly sat up straight, his huge horned head shook from side to side and asked, Where? Obviously, Kaido, the director of the zoo, still has no resistance to the powerful ability of Zone. Soon, Kaido realized the current situation. He glanced at Jin with a little displeasure and said, "Oh. Abel, what's the matter?" Abel is Jin's real name, but only a few people know it, and Kaido is naturally one of them. Jin doesn't like people calling him that, and Kaido also knows that sometimes he calls it wrong when he is drunk and not fully sober. Jin didn't bother with him, and handed the newspaper in his hand to Kaido and said, "The guy you said last time that you want me to keep an eye on the news for you, is in the newspaper." "Who?" Kaido yawned as if he hadn't cleared his mind yet, and the smell of hangover wine came out of his mouth, making Jin couldn't help pulling back a little distance and said, "That Donquixote Doflamingo." "Oh." Kaido's eyes sparkled and said, "That phantom beast kid." After finishing speaking, he quickly opened the newspaper and read it. After a while, his face changed. "Damn, what's going on with this guy?" Kaido appreciates Doflamingo very much, and there is only one reason, that is because Doflamingo is a phantom beast capable user, and he has already proved his talent because of the fierce battle with Sengoku. For Kaido, the director of the zoo, isn't this his favorite companion? Originally, when Doflamingo first became famous, Kaido wanted to go to North Blue to bring him back to New World and become his right-hand man. But at that time, because of Kazuki Oden, Kaido couldn't leave Wano-kuni casually, so as not to be taken advantage of by Kazuki Oden. But the situation is different now. Not to mention the disbandment of the Roger Pirates, Roger was also executed, so the threat level of Kazuki Oden, in Kaido's view, has been greatly reduced. Now the most worrying thing is that the Whitebeard Pirates will, because he came to make trouble for the Roger Pirates, there is no need to worry about it at all. At the same time, Kazuki Oden also reached an agreement with Kaido. As long as he pretends to be stupid in Wano-kuni, after 5 years, Kaido will let them go to sea and leave Wano-kuni. So the current situation is that Kazuki Oden is not a threat to Wano-kuni for the time being. Because of this, Kaido can roam around. If I had known that he would be so succumbing to the government of the world, so spineless, I shouldn't have listened to you at the time, and I should have gone directly to the paradise to arrest him, Kaido said angrily. What about 7 warlords of the sea? To be honest, Kaido doesn't even know what it means, as if he has heard of it, but Ida just as ifa, and he hasn't taken it to heart at all, at least for now. However, some things in the newspaper are also very clear, that is, 7 warlords of the sea is under the banner of the world government, and joining this organization is tantamount to being recruited by the world government. He saw this clearly just now, so from Kaido's point of view, Doflamingo was threatened by the world's government and submitted to the world's government by force. That's why Kaido thinks Doflamingo is spineless. At the same time, I also regret that I knew I would have acted first. That's right, after the big incident in Logue Town, Kaido once wanted to go there and bring Doflamingo back after hearing the news that Doflamingo and the others had attacked the Big Mom Pirates in the first half of the Grand Line. But Jin said that it was not necessary, as long as Doflamingo had a bit of ambition and ability, he would take the initiative to come to New World. After he comes, you can recruit him again, and even then, you can come forward to help him withstand the pressure of the Big Mom Pirates, sell it to Doflamingo, and make Doflamingo more loyal and obedient to their beasts pirates and so on. Kaido thought about it at the time, and felt that this was the case. He also felt that Doflamingo may be very good and promising, but it is unlikely that he wants to wrestle with Linlin and beat Charlotte Linlin now. When the time comes, when Linlin pushes Doflamingo into a desperate situation, and then he falls from the sky to grab that kid, are you afraid that he won't want to join the Beast's pirates? So Kaido adopted Jin's opinion. It turned out to be a good thing, so why did Doflamingo not enter the New World yet, and took refuge in the world government first? This made Kaido very popular. Of course, Kaido is not someone who will give up casually. After getting angry, he ordered, "Go, try to find out the whereabouts of this guy as much as possible. I will twist his neck myself. As a pirate, why not? Can you be so weak? Instead of taking refuge in the government of the world, you might as well give your life to Lousy." That's right. Although he was very annoyed by Doflamingo's soft bones, Kaido still cherishes his ability and decided to give Doflamingo another chance to choose, as long as he is willing to join his team. That is to abandon the dark and turn to the bright. Seeing that he is still a young man, it is inevitable that he will make a mistake. As long as the prodigal son can turn around and serve the Beast's pirates, that is completely acceptable. Thinking about it this way, Kaido still feels that he is really full of stamina and has an admirable demeanor. I am not surprised by Kaido's decision and thoughts, because he knows his elder brother too well, so he immediately said, "It has been arranged, as long as he enters New World and shows up, we will get the news." The first half of the Grand Line, Spring Queen Island. This is supposed to be a warm and spring-like travel island all year round, and it is very popular and trusted by the tourism industry. But at this time, the originally prosperous town has become a ruin. The bell tower in the distance, as if cut open by someone, was cut in half. The statue of the Virgin on the church has even moved its head. In the town, the well-known Haruno Flow Sword Dojo, the signboard has been cut into 7 sections. The great swordsman April, known as the Spring Wind Sword, was lying in the ruins of the sword dojo holding a broken famous sword at this time. There was a huge slash wound between his waist and abdomen, and even through the wound, he could see the internal organs that had been severely injured. Seeing how this great swordsman entered and exited more than he vented less, he reckoned that if no famous doctor took action, he should be close to death. Sure enough, about 10 seconds later, the great swordsman's voice was like a bellows, and he whimpered twice, his body twitched suddenly, and with a creak, he was gone. Not long after, a figure stepped out from the dilapidated gate of the sword dojo. This figure was dressed in decent aristocratic attire, with a black knife like a huge cross on his back, and an aristocratic top hat, with a calm and elegant demeanor. The most unforgettable thing is his pair of eyes, which are extremely sharp like a falcon. There is no doubt that this person is Doflamingo's good friend Dracule Mihawk. Mihawk's condition is not very good, he was pierced with a blood hole in his shoulder and suffered some injuries. It can be seen that there is still something about this Haruno style. April, who is known as the Spring Wind Sword, is not a rookie swordsman. After all, he could really hurt Mihawk. It can also be seen from this that not all the strong people in the sea like to show off so much. Many folk masters live in seclusion in the world quite low-key. I found a stone pier, and Mihawk sat on it. At this time, there was no one in the town, and he didn't care about it. He took out a folded paper from his arms, and after opening it, there was a long name. Mihawk searched on it, and quickly found the name, Spring Wind Sword April, then took out a pen from his pocket, and quickly marked the name with a cross. Who should be next? Mihawk continued to look down the list, muttering to himself. Just when Mihawk was thinking about who to challenge next, suddenly a newsbird flew over his head. The newsbird's cry caught Mihawk's attention, and his hawk-like eyes looked up into the sky. The newsbird, who was originally in the invitation, met Mihawk's eyes, and was so scared that he didn't dare to flap his wings. He landed on a waste wooden beam not far in front of Mihawk with trepidation. Slowly took out a newspaper from his satchel. Looking at this scene, Mihawk thought to himself that he didn't say he wanted to buy a newspaper, did he? However, with good eyesight, he seems to have noticed the photo of Doflamingo in the newspaper, so Mihawk decided to take advantage of the opportunity to buy a copy. However, before he could pay, the news bird suddenly flapped its wings and flew away. Judging from its posture, it seemed that Mihawk was some kind of scourge. In short, it seemed to be running for its life. Mihawk? What's the situation? But he didn't bother to think about these trivial matters, so he took 2 steps forward, picked up the newspaper, and read it. 7 Warlords of the Sea. Mihawk touched the beard on his chin with one hand, and murmured, "That guy. Why did he accept this identity? Strange." While Mihawk was reading the newspaper, Marine's warship also quickly docked in the port. A Marine's rear admiral got off the warship, and saw Mihawk reading the newspaper in the middle of the ruins of the town from a distance, and said angrily, "Damn guy, You actually destroyed the town of Queen of Spring Island like this. Die. Mahawk listened to the sound, looked at the annoying marine rushing towards him from a distance, and then at the Doflamingo who was smiling brightly in the newspaper. Suddenly there was a hint of understanding in his eyes and said, I see, if I become the 7 warlords of the sea, I won't have these noisy marines to bother me. That guy must be thinking about it too, right? A few minutes later, a swift and fierce green slash erupted from the ruins of the town, and the huge warship moored in the port was cut in half by this slash. After a while, in the bay where the warship sank, a small sampan dangled away from Queen of Spring Island. If you look closely, there seems to be a figure, using a huge black knife as an oar to paddle water. On the Sabaody archipelago, the tall gecko Moria is sitting on the stone pier of the pier, watching the coating shop coating his ships. At this time, his attention was not on his own boat, but on the newspaper in his hand. 7 warlords of the sea. The lackeys of the government. Moria touched her chin, but quickly recalled the scene when she saw Doflamingo brazenly slap celestial dragons on the street. He shook his head and said, no. With that guy's style, he doesn't seem like someone who would submit to the government, or in other words, he is likely to have a very complicated relationship with the world government, so this kind of factor should be ruled out. From this point of view, it should be that guy who thinks that 7 warlords of the sea are 10 identities that are very useful to him. So he accepted the offer from Marie Joyce? But soon, a disdainful smile appeared on Moria's face and said, but no matter what the reason is, in the view of the pirates, you still chose to submit to the world's government and become their lackey. What a disappointment. Doflamingo. Proud Moria-sama, I am not a weak guy like you. I, Gecko Moria, stand strong, no matter what happens, even if I starve to death, die in New World, or jump from Sky Island, I cannot become the ruler of the world. The lackeys, go be this 7 warlords of the sea. Throwing away the newspaper in his hand, the steadfast Lord Moria asked, hey, brother, how long will it take to finish the coating? What's the rush? What's the rush? Are you in such a hurry to rush to the sea for the funeral? The irritable coated brother responded angrily. Moria's face twitched for a moment, but in the end she didn't dare to speak back, for fear that the irritable old man would leave a back door for himself during coating, and he would really go to the deep sea for his funeral? Marine Headquarters Marineford. Sakazuki is in Sengoku Admiral's office at this time. At this time, there was no one else here. Sengoku was reviewing some documents, and Sakazuki sat on the sofa without saying a word. After a while, Sengoku rubbed the corners of his eyebrows helplessly. Kanshi Sakazuki asked. So are you here to supervise the old man's work today? Sakazuki. Sakazuki was silent for a moment, and then asked, how long will things like 7 warlords of the sea exist? Sengoku froze for a moment, then shook his head and said, that depends on the situation in the sea and the strength of our marine. You should also know that the 7 warlords of the sea project was born because the government feels that we, the marine, cannot control the situation of the sea more effectively. Sakazuki nodded when he heard the words, and said with a rare look of unwillingness in his eyes, I see. He was defeated overwhelmingly by Doflamingo on Sky Island, but Sakazuki was not discouraged by this, but held his breath. During this period of time, his training volume and actual combat performance have been significantly enhanced. He gritted his teeth and persisted, waiting for another chance, and when he saw that bastard Doflamingo again, he would stuff him into the magma and burn him to slag. It turned out to be a good thing. He hadn't achieved great success yet, and Doflamingo on the opposite side suddenly became 7 warlords of the sea. He has become what they call, one of his own people, so that Sakazuki, who is a marine, suddenly lost his position to attack Doflamingo. This is worse than killing Sakazuki. South Blue, Battery Island. Roger's former residence. At this time Garp was sitting in the yard of his house basking in the sun. And Garp was also holding a newspaper in his hand. He frowned and said, so soon, has one been added? Doflamingo. I didn't expect it was really him. Those idiots on Marie Joyce, they will feel it sooner or later, what a terrifying destructive power a pirate protected by law will have. As Garp muttered these words, a woman with long pale blonde hair came out of the room. This woman is obviously, it is Portgas de Rouge. At this time, her lower abdomen swelled slightly, as if she had just been pregnant. But in fact, she has been here for a long time. Garp has been living here all this time, protecting Rouge. As a result, many Marines in South Blue are spreading gossip about the marine hero Garp, saying that this old guy seems to have met his second spring after coming to South Blue, and met a young and beautiful man on Batlera Island. Women live together. And it's only been a few months, that beautiful woman seems to be pregnant. In private, many Marines secretly praised him, saying that Garp is always strong and whatnot. Of course Garp also knew about these rumors, but he didn't try to refute them, because he knew that perhaps these rumors could actually become a protective color for Rouge and the child in her womb. How did you get out? Garp asked, sitting up. It's time to go grocery shopping, Rouge said calmly. Then, Rouge went out as usual, blending into the street like a newly pregnant lady without any abnormality. Looking at her back, Garp finally sighed and didn't say much. The Fishmen Island, the port of Coral Hill. Doflamingo stayed in the Fishmen Island for a few days, and discussed many things with Neptune and the ministers of Dragon Palace City about the cooperation between the two parties. The Fishmen Island needs preparation, as does Doflamingo. Therefore, the two parties will maintain a certain amount of contact in the follow-up and jointly improve a plan. After completing these tasks, the coating of the new flamingo is almost completed. After nearly half a month in the Fishmen Island, Doflamingo finally got the news that he could leave. He didn't mean to delay any longer, he just wanted to kill Dressrosa now and get his own basic set. Walking on the way to the pier, Doflamingo noticed that Shirley, who was following him, seemed a little depressed. Of course Doflamingo understood what was going on. He put his arms around Shirley's shoulders with a smile and said, "Why are you unhappy?" Shirley pursed her lips and said nothing. In the past half a month, she has been with Doflamingo almost every day. When Doflamingo is busy with business, she is quiet like a little transparent. When Doflamingo has nothing to do, she takes Doflamingo everywhere on the Fishmen Island. Hang around. It can be said that now Doflamingo is already considered as a small half of the Fishmen Island expert, and he is familiar with everything he needs to play and watch. Coupled with Beckman and Lini's assists from time to time, as early as a few days ago, Chong Li was finally addicted to the handsomeness and charm of the young master. The two had a wonderful night. But it is a bit embarrassing to say that the mermaids can only split their legs after they are 30 years old, so I can only say that they understand how to spend this night. Shirley was also opened up by Doflamingo, an old scumbag. The gate of the world. There is one thing to say, the shark's teeth are really sharp, and Doflamingo didn't even dare to challenge his weakness at first. You're leaving. How can I be happy? Shirley said awkwardly. Doflamingo smiled and said, then do you want to come with me? Not to mention, Doflamingo's proposal really made Shirley hesitate for a moment. She asked softly, is it okay? Of course. Doflamingo nodded, but then said, but I hope you can wait for me in the Fishmen Island for a while. This time entering the new world is not just a joke. When he said this, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a serious look. Shirley is not a combatant. Once a fight starts, not only will she not be of much help, but she may become her own weakness. Doflamingo is also very clear that as soon as he enters the new world, he will immediately start a war in the new world of. After all, that fellow Charlotte Linlin probably wanted to skin her cramps a long time ago. Thinking of this, Doflamingo rubbed Shirley's head again, and said softly, it won't be too long. I will come back when I finish dealing with New World matters and lay a foundation in New World. I have been by my side for a while, so I naturally know that the Fishmen Island is my important partner as I made an agreement with King Neptune. So I will definitely come back. Shirley wasn't worried about the bastard Doflamingo unplugging Ruthless, after all. She wasn't really tainted, if anything. And she also knows that what Doflamingo said is the truth. Whether it is about the struggle in the New World or the situation of the Fishmen Island, she has heard a lot, so she is well aware of the situation that the Donquixote family will face bright. I also know that if I insist on following Doflamingo now, not only will I not be able to help him, but it will only add to the chaos. Then you must pay attention to safety and don't be too aggressive. Shirley held Doflamingo's arm, put his head on Doflamingo's arm, and said softly. In this way, the two showed their affection and walked into the dock. Regarding this matter, Fisher Tiger, the boss of Murloc Street, has brought the agreed crew and is waiting for Doflamingo here. As Tiger's confidant, Arlong stood by Tiger's side. Although he was still a little reluctant in his heart, he wanted to be a crew member for a human, but for the safety of his compatriots, and Tiger Boss's orders, and the future of the so-called Murloc Street. Arlong finally decided to take on the responsibility. The big deal is, when he reached the surface of the sea, he really found out that this human being is nothing but mud that cannot be lifted up. If he is not worthy of letting their Murlocs work, he will bring his brothers back again. Looking at the clock tower at the port, Arlong said impatiently, why don't you come? As soon as his voice fell, Tiger's eyes lit up and said, here we come. But in the next second, Tiger seemed to have discovered something, his expression froze, and there was great doubt and incomprehension in his eyes. Arlong is his confidant little brother, so he knows Arlong's situation very well. He knows that this guy also has a younger sister named Shirley, and they meet often. If he's not mistaken, the mermaid girl holding Doflamingo's arm like a lover, is Zhenli? Just when Tiger was in a daze, Arlong also heard the voice. Is it finally here? This group of Momo. With that said, Arlong also froze in place. What the hell did I see? Why? My sister is with that human. In an instant, Tiger came back to his senses, patted Arlong on the shoulder and said, "Look, I just said that he treats us mermaids and murlocs very well, right? There is no discrimination at all, and he puts us on equal status. Come up to the racial egalitarians." But? Is this the time to say this, boss? Arlong reacted with embarrassment and said, "Hey, that human, let go of my sister and Shirley. Do you know what you are doing? Get out of here." At this time Doflamingo was also confused, because he knew about the relationship between Shirley and Arlong, but he didn't care about it before, but he really never thought that Tiger is now planning to arrange Arlong into his lost on board. This. Suddenly saw his big brother at the port, somewhat embarrassing for Doflamingo. Seriously, a guy of Arlong's caliber, Doflamingo, really doesn't think he's anything. But at this time Arlong rushed over aggressively, looking very angry, which made Doflamingo a little bit at a loss. What should I do? I can't beat him, can I? And just when Arlong was about to go mad at Doflamingo, Shirley, who had always been very gentle by Doflamingo's side, broke out suddenly. Before Arlong could say anything cruel, Shirley wagged the shark's tail and pulled it out. The huge shark's tail wrapped in extremely strong force, and immediately covered Arlong's face, and with a snap, Arlong was knocked to the ground. Speaking of it, although Arlong is the elder brother and Shirley is the younger sister, but from the physical point of view, Arlong is only 2.56 meters, and Shirley is more than 3 meters. And further back, Shirley seems to be able to grow to more than 5 meters. Anyway, Arlong was knocked down by Shirley with one blow, then Shirley smiled at the confused Doflamingo and Beckman, and then pinched Arlong's nose on the ground. He dragged and avoided tens of meters away. Arlong was dizzy and was suddenly attacked by his sister. He really didn't realize it. When he regained consciousness, he was dragged into a corner by his sister. "Shirley, you." Arlong was just about to speak, when he saw Shirley's eyes showing a murderous look, which made Arlong tremble all over. "You idiot, if you dare to point fingers at my feelings and disrespect the young lord, I will bite you to death, and then eat every bite, understand?" Shirley grabbed Arlong's ears with both hands, murderously. Tenton roared. There was cold sweat on Arlong's forehead, and he couldn't help swallowing in fright. Although it is true that they are half-brothers and sisters, don't forget that they are all shark murlocs. They have the blood of sharks, and sharks are species that will kill each other from the embryonic stage. Arlong had no doubt that once his sister went crazy, she might really kill him and eat him. I see, don't be so fierce," Arlong said intermittently. Speaking of which, his elder brother is actually quite disrespectful, because he has been out of business since he was a child, so he often participates in the fights in Murloc Street. As a shark murloc, he is quite capable of fighting, but people often miss this place in Murloc Street. Has anyone ever been beaten? So many times, Arlong was beaten and bruised, lying in the dark alleyway unable to move, and finally had to rely on his sister to save his life. So growing up, even though Arlong is older, in fact, Shirley is too used to picking him up. Helping Arlong to straighten the crooked jagged nose, Shirley pinched the soft flesh of Arlong's waist, brought him to Doflamingo and the others with a smile, and introduced. "This is my incompetent brother, it's called Arlong." After finishing speaking, she twisted Arlong's waist and said, "You will be a member of the Donquixote family soon. Why don't you call me young master?" Arlong bared his teeth, but under Shirley's power, he finally whispered, "Young master." Doflamingo rubbed his chin. It looked like this matter was sorted out. So he said hello to Arlong, and it was a bit of fun. At the same time, seeing that it was almost time for him to appear on the stage, Tiger took advantage of the situation and pushed Arlong to the back, and said with a smile, "Your Excellency Doflamingo, again we have met. According to the agreement, 100 good guys from our Murloc Street will follow your Donquixote family to the New World and become your crew." Looking at the large group of Murloc men with very strong muscles and physique, Doflamingo also said with satisfaction, "This time I really trouble you, Boss Tiger." Tiger waved his hand grandly, then suddenly grabbed Doflamingo's shoulder and said, "I heard from Jinbei that your Excellency wants to cooperate with us in big business with the Fishmen Island. Don't forget to give us Murloc Street a hand when the time comes." "Definitely, I have considered all the plans." Doflamingo immediately patted his chest and agreed. After hearing Doflamingo's full attitude, Tiger was even happier. He said to Doflamingo with a smile on his face, "It's also fate this time, you know. I'm an adventurer. I've basically been exploring outside these years, not all out of interest. On the one hand because I am really curious about the world on the sea, and on the other hand, I also hope to find a good way out from Murloc Street through constant exploration and understanding of this world. A. Doflamingo nodded when he heard this. It's not easy for you. Perhaps Tiger hasn't made any great feats yet, but he and Drago should be the same kind of person, the kind of leader who is born with a strong sense of responsibility. A truly great personality. Anyway, he is incomparable to Doflamingo. Originally, if you hadn't come to look for me, I guess I would have been ready to go out during this period of time. I have made a new adventure plan before, but now it seems that there is no need. I will wait for you at the Fishman Island. Good news. After this, I will rectify Murloc Street. I can't let those bastards continue to act recklessly. Let them change their temper first, so that no matter what kind of cooperation it is, it will be beneficial, right? Tiger said with a smile. The cultural quality of Murloc Street is relatively low, which is normal. After all, it is a slum plus an orphanage. The environment is here, so you can't force too much. Of course, Doflamingo does not ask for this, but since Tiger has this kind of thinking, it is a good thing, among other things, to rectify those thorns, and then he can obey orders and obey orders. He is a good worker. But as soon as this idea came up, Doflamingo was stunned again. Wait a minute. What did Tiger say just now? He said that if he hadn't come, he should have planned to go out for an adventure recently? If you count the time, there is a high probability that this adventure will be the one when Tiger overturned the car. He went out to take risks, but for various reasons, he was eventually sold to Marie Joyce as a slave. After being a slave on Marie Joyce for a period of time, Tiger, who is now cheerful and tolerant, completely deformed in the end, becoming an extreme racist who can no longer coexist, tolerate, and trust with human beings in his heart. But how should I put it? Tiger's noble personality is here. He knows very well that he hates human beings, but he can still control his emotions and help those who have been rescued regardless of race. Slave. To be honest, it is hard for Doflamingo to imagine. What kind of mentality does he use to do these things? But now, Tiger's adventure plan has gone bankrupt. Now he has found a new direction from Doflamingo, and he is ready to cooperate with Doflamingo wholeheartedly to widen the road of Murloc Street. That must also mean that he will not experience this. What a tragic scene. Just kidding. People don't even come out of Murloc Street. How can they be captured as slaves? Whoever has the ability to kidnap him and sell him as a slave in the Fishman Island, Murloc Street, surrounded by tens of thousands of Tiger brothers, is really sick, because he has this strength, and he still wants to be a slave. Slave traders, outrageous. And if Tiger didn't want to be a slave anymore, he naturally wouldn't be able to climb up Marie Joyce with his bare hands after escaping, set off a big riot, and rescue the slaves. Thinking of this, Doflamingo looked at his little brother Tezzolo standing not far away, and thought that this guy still has a lot of luck. If he didn't meet him on the Sabodi archipelago, Tiger wouldn't go to Marie Joyce again. What kind of golden emperor are you still? You should be a golden slave. Thinking about it again, isn't this a pain for the three Boya sisters? If Tiger is not going, how will Boa Hancock and the others escape? Just when Doflamingo was thinking about this, he suddenly laughed again, worrying unnecessarily. Now that Tiger is affected by his butterfly wings to such an extent, maybe the three Hancock sisters will not go to Marie Joyce to suffer. If you really suffer, then it depends on fate. After chatting with Tiger for a few more words, Tiger finally couldn't help but exhorted. Although this guy Arlong has a bluffing personality, he is actually a very good person. As long as he really recognizes you as the young master identity, you will find that he is even willing to give his life to you. Doflamingo was silent for a while, and sorted out Arlong according to his own impression. Is this guy good? Anyway, in my impression, he is pretty good. At most he can be regarded as a little Karami at the level of the Overlord of East Blue. But looking back on this guy's experience, I think he may still have some potential, which is worth cultivating. Arlong is only 20 years old this year, as old as himself, but he was able to stand out among the 10,000 evil Murlocs in Murloc Street and become Tiger's confidant. Judging from the later situation of the Sun Pirates, he and Jinbei belong to Taij, Grid's right-hand man. In terms of strength, Jinbei must be stronger, and Jinbei is also older than him, and he was a regular soldier in Dragon Palace City. Ida just that after Tajera's death, Arlong was too impulsive, and went back to settle accounts with Marine, and finally fell into the hands of Peluzalino, but this is completely understandable. How many people of Arlong's age survived the encounter with Peluzalino? Then, Arlong was imprisoned in Imperton for several years. When Jinbei chose to join the 7 Warlords of the Sea, this guy was pardoned from Imperin because of Jinbei's 7 Warlords of the Sea status. Dunley let it out. After he came out, this guy broke up with Jinbei, went to East Blue, and has been a salted fish ever since. Looking at it this way, it can be said that his experience is entirely dependent on his talent, and he has never received formal training at all. At the age when he should grow up most, he is either in prison or a salted fish. If you cultivate it, maybe there will be surprises. At least it's okay to be a small cadre, Doflamingo commented in his heart. After considering this aspect, Lita consider Arlong's character. Well, it can be said that he is a scumbag, but Ida's okay. The Donquixote family has no good people in the conventional sense, they are basically scumbags and villains polymers. Therefore, in terms of entry requirements, the dragon unexpectedly comes out of flat raw materials. Looking at his character, there is no doubt that Arlong is the kind of jerk, but it doesn't mean that he has no shining points. At least when this guy treats his compatriots, he really treats them as his own family. Look at. Deep down in his heart, he cherishes his partner very much. Now, his concept is limited to his own compatriots, but will it be like Tiger said, if Arlong, after getting along for a period of time, recognizes him as the master from the bottom of his heart, will he offer his heart to himself? If you think about it carefully, the possibility is actually quite small. You can try it. Doflamingo nodded and said to Tiger, don't worry. Anyone who is willing to bear the name of my Donquixote family is my blood brother. Tiger heard the words and said happily, sure enough, I saw you right. On the other hand, Beckman rubbed his chin, thinking Tiger, don't be too happy too early, I'm afraid you don't know how miserable his real only blood brother has been tossed by him. Just by taking the medicine, I have gained more than 10 kilograms. Soon, Doflamingo bid farewell to his relatives and friends on the Fishman Island. With Tajera's heroic laughter, Scholar Dana's wave, and Shirley's reluctance, the new flamingo slowly left the Fishman Island, port of Men Island. This stop, the departure is New World. On the deck, Doflamingo is sitting on a chair, flipping through a book in his hand. The rest of the crew performed their duties, and Beckman was holding the rudder, constantly adjusting the course of the ship according to the current. In the deep sea, from time to time, a few huge sea beasts, sea fish and so on will swim by. After a while, Arlong walked to Doflamingo's side with a hesitant expression. He looked at the book in Doflamingo's hand, slightly surprised. Are you reading the history book of the Fishman Island? Huh. Doflamingo heard the voice, looked up at Arlong, and said, why? Do you have a unique insight in this regard? The corner of Arlong's mouth twitched and said, cough. I'm just surprised, after all, a local like me has never seen it. If you want to understand a country, you must first look at its history. From history, we can get many answers. This is a golden advice given to me by a friend of mine. Doflamingo said with a smile. Why do you want to know about the Fishman Island? Arlong asked after a moment of silence. As a partner, I want to know more about the culture and history of our partners. This will make our relationship with the Fishman Island easier and make friendship easier. Is there a problem? Doflamingo asked calmly. Arlong thought about it and thought it was okay. After a while, he said, Boss Tiger said you were a rare racial egalitarian, and you are sincerely treating our compatriots on the Fishman Island as equals. At first, I didn't really believe it, but now. At least you are the first human being I have met who is willing to take the initiative to understand and respect our history and culture. Thank you so much. Doflamingo smiled and said, so, you came to see me just to talk about this? No. Arlong finally came to his senses, and said viciously, what's going on with you and Shirley? In love. Doflamingo responded calmly. Arlong is confused by his natural appearance, isn't it? Is it strange to me? Why are you so calm? What is your expression? You are not the kind of disgusting, narrow-minded racist that Tiger said, are you? Doflamingo asked with a look of surprise. Arlong panicked instinctively, and immediately said, I'm not, I. Cough. I also pursue racial equality. Inexplicably, in front of the noble Doflamingo, Arlong was a little embarrassed to admit that he really thought the Murlocs were superior. I feel that if I say that, I am a little sorry for Brother Tiger, and compared with Doflamingo, it seems that I am really narrow-minded. That's it, I see Shirley as an equal existence with me, so I appreciate and like Shirley, so I choose to enjoy a relationship with Shirley, isn't it very reasonable? Do you want to question or say something? Any other opinions? Doflamingo asked Arlong in a confident tone. No. Arlong was stunned by Doflamingo's attitude, and finally said in a daze, I'm just curious, so I'm leaving first. After speaking, he ran away in a hurry. Doflamingo looked at Arlong's back with some amusement, shook his head, and then read the book again. Fight with me, you are still a little immature. New World, near the gateway to the Red Line. Under the turbulent sea, a large wave suddenly broke open. Then, A huge ship emerged from under the sea surface, and the foam originally wrapped in the outer layer of the big ship exploded with a bang, exposing the entire hull. Is this the new world? Yoroge grabbed the fence beside the deck and looked towards the sea, like a curious fat man of 500 pounds. But soon, he smacked his lips and said, "There's nothing special about it, except that the sea here is rough." Just then, Beckman bit a cigarette and said to him, "Look up." Yoroge looked up without knowing why, and then his pupils dilated instantly. In the sky, a huge magma ball is falling towards this side with the momentum of destroying everything. "What the hell? Why is there such a thing in the sky?" Yoroge exclaimed. Beckman exhaled smoke, and said calmly, "Theoretically speaking, this is the eruption of a submarine volcano in New World, and the huge magma spewed out fell." Yoroge said with a disbelieving expression, "I don't read much, so don't lie to me." At the same time, Virgo also followed up and said, "In short, the climate in New World is extremely abnormal. Let alone magma, even if a volcano suddenly falls, don't be too surprised, it is a common situation." The three of them sat here discussing the magma that fell like a meteorite from the sky, and Arlong rushed over behind him and said, "Hey, the shadows are covering us, hurry up and sail, or you will be hit up. Is this group of people sick? The magma is about to fall on heads, and they are still discussing the reason for its formation?" Beckman flicked the cigarette ash calmly and said, "Xiaolong, do you know what a navigator is?" "My name is Arlong, thank you." Arlong twitched his face and said. Beckman didn't answer at all. Instead he said to himself, "The so-called navigator is the existence of leading the fleet to overcome all difficulties and ride the wind and waves." As soon as his words fell, the cigarette butt in his hand was thrown into the seawater without quality, and then the pupils of his eyes turned into lightning, and his whole body was shocked. In the next second, a thick beam of lightning exploded from the deck and soared into the sky. The huge mass of magma that was falling in the sky that day was completely engulfed by this thunder beam almost instantly. After the thunder disappeared, Arlong was amazed that the huge magma mass that could have destroyed the ship had disappeared. It was as if it had never been there. Beckman flicked the spark in his hand smartly, and took out a flue from his pocket again. "Arlong, do you understand now?" A bright smile hung on Arlong's face and said, "You can call me Xiaolong. This ship is full of monsters, right? Doesn't it mean that humans are weak? A navigator is so strong, so a strong fighter like you Rouge is invincible in the world?" At present, the simple-minded Arlong is still judging the opponent's strength with his muscles. Talking and laughing here, Doflamingo pushed open the hatch and came out, asking, "What's the matter just now? I felt a strong energy shock." "It's nothing. I encountered a small problem and it has been resolved," Beckman said calmly. Seeing this, Doflamingo didn't ask any more questions. He walked forward, looked at the vast new world, and said, "According to the previous plan, let's stop wandering. Isn't Dressrosa's permanent record pointer already high? Directly drive to Dressrosa." Beckman took out a permanent record pointer from his pocket, and then said, "No problem, our supplies are completely sufficient." Yoroge asked, "How long will it take to reach Dressrosa?" "If there are no troubles on the way." Beckman stroked his chin and estimated, "It will probably take about a month." Except for Arlong, who had never traveled far, who was a little surprised at how long it took, the rest of the people had a look of surprise. In fact, sailing is such a boring thing. It takes a few months to wander in the sea without seeing a single island. This is still going straight to Dressrosa. If we follow the normal route and store up the magnetic field one by one, it will take half a year, which is really difficult. In this way, the new Flamingo quickly headed in the direction of Dressrosa. Doflamingo is also not interested in basking in the sun on the deck, after all, he doesn't like the sun himself. On the third day, the ship had already sailed out of the gateway waters of the New World. Doflamingo got up late today and had a long sleep that woke up naturally. After finishing the work and eating lunch, I went back to my cabin to continue fishing. Holding a book in one hand, the other hand is stirring the coffee cup on the table, and the strong aroma of coffee permeates the whole room. A lingering blood energy also circulated around Doflamingo. From time to time, you could see this guy's eyes turn scarlet, and his aura also fluctuated. Occasionally appears very strong, but mostly calm. Obviously, Doflamingo didn't forget to hone his devil fruit ability while reading the book. Recently, he has newly developed the use of some abilities, but he has not yet put them into actual combat. Thinking of this, Doflamingo shifted his gaze from the book to the coffee cup, picked up the coffee and took a sip. He wonders if the Big Mom pirates have found that I have entered New World. Will they intercept me somewhere? Thinking about it, I still have some expectations. When Doflamingo was thinking about this, suddenly, the phone he put on the table rang. Brew brew brew. Brew brew brew. Doflamingo glanced at the phone bug, tapped his finger on the table lightly. A thin thread came out from the black stone ring, and picked up the phone bug very precisely. To be honest, when he wanted to embed the ability of this string fruit into the ring, both Quinn and Guy felt a little inappropriate. Because after many attempts, they came to the conclusion that although Paramecia and Logia's devil fruit can also be materialized, the most effective is Zone's ability. Because Zone's ability, after materialization, can be clearly felt, can inspire a certain amount of wisdom, and can better understand the thoughts of the person who uses the item, and act according to this idea. In other words, there is a certain amount of artificial intelligence. And Logia and Paramecia, there is no such advantage. If you really get this ring, if you don't make it right, you will lose an ability in vain. And the effect that appeared later, just as Quinn and Guy expected, string fruit is placed on a ring that doesn't match it at all. It is really difficult to control. It is not like a heart, it is a sharp weapon in itself, and wind pressure and wind blade can be perfectly combined. I don't know how to use this thing. Fortunately, Doflamingo had planned for a long time. The ring looks like it is worn on the finger. In fact, there are thin threads inside, which are pierced into Doflamingo's body and connected with his blood vessels. Nearly connected. It can be said that this ring with the ability of string fruit is Doflamingo's neural external equipment. It can make him use this ability like a finger. After realizing this result, Quinn was very excited. He felt as if a new door to the materialization of devil fruit had been opened, and he felt that this idea could be continued to be developed and applied. But after several experiments, they all failed. Facts have proved that only the ability of string fruit can be linked to the nerves, and the rest are very embarrassing. So on the surface, Doflamingo is a vampire-capable person, but in fact, he made a fool of himself. Judge? It's been a long time since I've contacted you. Doflamingo greeted him with a smile after picking up the phone. Judge, this old boy returned to Germa after the Cervantes incident, and he never showed up again, and he never contacted Doflamingo. It is estimated that he was worried about contacting Doflamingo too much at that time. Will be watched by the government of the world? My lord, it's been a long time to greet you, Judge said in a very enthusiastic tone. Doflamingo was a little surprised. Although Master Young Master is not a special title for the Donquixote family in the true sense, many people who have a good relationship with Doflamingo, or who respect him, also use this title. But in the past, Judge didn't call him that, did he? From these titles, it can be felt that the Guy Judge seems to have been lowered from the role he thought could be equal to Doflamingo before to the current position of the younger brother. Why are you so polite? Doflamingo was a little curious in his heart, but still greeted him with a smile on the surface. It should be, young master, you are now the benchmark of our North Blue, the distinguished 7 warlords of the sea. During this time, I have grown to respect you, young master. Judge patted his horse. Shit road. Doflamingo smiled, raised his eyebrows and said, could it be that he is short of money again? On the other side of the phone bug, Judge was embarrassed for a moment, and then said, is that so? Is that something else? Doflamingo asked again. Cough. I heard that under your command, young master, you have already set up several military factories and production bases on North Blue's side, Judge asked, clearing his throat a little. It seems to be the case, but you also know that I am not in North Blue now, and I don't care about many things there anymore. People at home are watching. What's wrong? It's business for Germa, has any effect? Doflamingo asked knowingly. Ha 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 ha. Judge first deliberately smiled, and then said, that's right, my lord, as you know, we Germa also have our own production lines and channels in this area, and currently North Blue's largest ammunition. It can be said that there are 2 of us, and the rest cannot compete with us, so instead of the 2 of us competing with each other, do you think we should join forces to monopolize this market, and then whether it is quality or price, it will not be us, is it all right? Did you call me just to tell me this? Doflamingo asked softly. Judge hesitated for a moment, and finally said, well, yes. I'm very happy that you can call me this phone bug, but I don't like the things you said, and the scale is not enough, Judge, you disappoint me. Doflamingo sighed and said in a very regretful tone. After the voice fell, he hung up the phone directly. North Blue, a certain sea area, is floating in a warhouse on the sea. Vinsmoke Judge looked at the phone bug that was hung up in his hand at this time, with an uncertain expression. Judge? Sora looked at Judge worriedly, and called out. Vinsmoke Sola, Judge's wife, the beginning of the dominion of Irma. At this time, she was still holding a baby with pink hair in her arms, who seemed to be about 1 or 2 years old. Obviously, this is Reiju, the eldest daughter of the Germa family. Under this call, Judge quickly came back to his senses, looked at Sola with gentle eyes and said, why are you here? You are still pregnant, go and rest. Are you okay? Sora asked with concerned eyes. Judge smiled and shook his head. It's okay, it's just that I slightly underestimated the greed of some people. After sending Sora back to the room to rest, Judge sat on his throne, looking at the phone bug in his hand with very gloomy eyes. He has already lowered his stance as much as possible to please the bastard Doflamingo, but in the end, that guy actually said that he is not big enough. Judge is not an idiot, he can understand Doflamingo's meaning naturally. That is to say, Doflamingo is too lazy to discuss the arms business with him. North Blue's arms business, in Doflamingo's view, is nothing more than a trivial matter. Is it considered not enough to talk to him about these little things as a topic? But what does the preceding sentence mean? I can call him, he is very happy. But soon, Judge came to his senses and murmured in a somewhat complicated tone. That guy. Does he want to swallow the whole Germa? Doflamingo left North Blue, but Donquixote family did not. On the contrary, relying on Doflamingo's external power, Donquixote family developed very rapidly in North Blue. Although it was very powerful at the beginning, it was an emerging force after all, and it hadn't been developed for a few years. Now, the Donquixote family is in North Blue, and it can be said that it has a deep foundation. Looking at the entire North Blue, nowadays, it can still be regarded as a dark world force that is qualified to fight with the Donquixote family, and it is actually Germa. But that's because almost all of the Donquixote family's main force has left North Blue, so it can be counted as qualified. Once Doflamingo and the others come back to North Blue, Judge thinks he can easily press himself to death. Notably, Doflamingo also became the 7 warlords of the sea. Now that he killed himself, he didn't worry about any retaliation from the world government. After thinking about it, Doflamingo may have taken a fancy to Germa. Judge was very annoyed at first, even ashamed. But after a short while, he fell into deep thought again. Germa's future. Where should he go? His ambition is to revive the kingdom of Germa, but now it seems that it is more troublesome. In North Blue, the world government itself has been wary of them. They are suppressing Germa to such an extent that a franchise country doesn't even have a fixed territory. Originally, they could rely on dominating the dark world of North Blue to seek development and future, but now, the Donquixote family is like a mountain, pressing on them, and if they want to continue to grow, they must climb over this mountain. But the problem, Judge is very clear, he can't beat Doflamingo at all. If it continues to drag on, it will be nothing more than a slow death. The dark world of North Blue must have only one voice. And Doflamingo doesn't even need to do anything to Germa, just show a little attitude. Then those who want to get in touch with him will abandon them Germa, even come up and step on 2 feet. If things go on like this, Germa's business and source of income will only become more and more exhausted. They have no land resources and can only survive on the dark world, the last bit of soil. It will also be compressed and destroyed by the Donquixote family. When the time comes, Germa will inevitably be finished. Earlier, I'd not that Judge didn't see this kind of future, but at that time he thought he was capable of fighting Doflamingo. Can you still deal with a Donquixote family that has only risen for 10 years? Well, now it turns out that he really can't figure it out. Thinking of this, Judge relished Doflamingo's words just now. Not enough capacity. Am I really not enough capacity? Otherwise, how could it be used further and further away by the Donquixote family? And if I join the Donquixote family now? Judge mused again. The big era has arrived, and Judge can see this. Doflamingo was the first clipper to ride the huge waves. He has now become the so-called 7 warlords of the sea, and his ambition has led him to enter the new world. What if Germa also gets on board the clippers called Heavenly Yaksha? At that time, will he be able to walk out of North Blue, or in other words, if he shows his loyalty, Doflamingo will give him North Blue? After a long time, Judge still couldn't make up his mind. He was still worried that Doflamingo would fail. This time he entered New World, and the Big Mom pirates had already announced that they would go to war with him. Judge doesn't have much confidence in Doflamingo, so he wants to wait and see. In fact, as Doflamingo said, this guy's capacity has come to an end, and what he is thinking about is nothing more than a country, North Blue or something. When it was time to make a bet, he hesitated, fearing this and that. After all, Judge looked at the phone bug and didn't dial it again. On the other side, New World, Doflamingo drank 2 more cups of coffee before stretching his waist, glanced at the phone bug who hadn't moved, and said with a sneer, "Sure enough, you shouldn't have too high expectations for that kind of guy." Expectations. As a leader, it's really too bad, but that scientific research talent is not without merit. Although Judge disappointed him, Doflamingo was willing to give him a while. No way, he is such a broad-minded man. Just when Doflamingo was about to sleep and recuperate, Suddenly, there was a knock on his door. "Come in." Doflamingo responded. Afterwards, I saw Mahabasi rushing in excitedly. The fat all over his body was almost squeezed onto Doflamingo's face, and he said, my lord, my lord. D spoke. Doflamingo, who originally wanted to make this guy back away, had a look of surprise on his face and said, then, cough, my dear brother's condition has improved? It's getting better. Mahabas said. He said just now. I originally planned to give him medicine, but he finally couldn't help but refuse me, saying that his condition is much better and he doesn't need to take such medicine. Too much medicine. Doflamingo's smile became brighter and brighter. You see, if you are sick normally, you really need to be treated well, but for those who like to pretend to be sick, severe illness requires strong medicine. What kind of mental illness? Dementia syndrome. That is to take less medicine. Look at Rozinante, isn't it better to take it now? Let's go and have a look. Doflamingo said excitedly. Speaking of which, although they were all on the same boat, Doflamingo rarely visited Rozinante. In his words, he just couldn't bear to see his younger brother so miserable. In fact, I just don't bother to accompany Rozinante in that Notre Dame drama. For this situation, Rozinante is not surprised at all, because he has long felt that Doflamingo is the kind of guy who is very ruthless, and if he visits him enthusiastically every day, it will make Rozinante feel strange. Therefore, the two brothers who lived under the same cabin met again after a long time. Doflamingo didn't even recognize him at first glance. What the hell is this Rozinante? Why are you so fat like a pig? That's right, Rozinante, although he is a bit weird, has inherited the same gene as Doflamingo. It can be said that even if he can't compare with Doflamingo, a sunny and cheerful boy, his appearance is not bad. But at this moment, he has become too bloated, and his whole person is evolving in the direction of Mahabas. After a momentary stupor, Doflamingo looked at Nelson, who was examining Rozinante, and asked, why did my brother become so burly? Nelson said with a slightly embarrassed expression, first of all, Rozinante lacks exercise because of his weakness. For such a long time, he has lived in the cabin. He eats and sleeps every day. He has some physical problems. Getting fat is a very reasonable expression. Doflamingo nodded, and said, so what's the real reason? The hormone content in the medicine is a bit high. Nelson said with a little guilty conscience. The medicines they brought out from the Drum Kingdom were all of bad quality and contained a lot of hormones, which was quite normal. Now, Rozinante has become a fat pig. So, can it be recovered? Doflamingo asked again. Yes, as long as his condition can stabilize and gradually improve, then he can strengthen some exercises, so that he doesn't have to stay in the room all the time, and the dosage of medicine can be reduced appropriately, and he will lose weight naturally, Nelson said. With good cooperation, Doflamingo nodded, walked to Rozinante's side, and said in a very sincere tone, Rozinante, did you hear that? As long as you recover well. You don't need to take so many medicines anymore, you must persevere and overcome this disease. Rozinante didn't want to pay attention to Doflamingo, just nodded silently. His mood seemed to be very low on weekdays. Seeing his appearance, Doflamingo immediately called out, Doctor, my brother is still silent. It seems that the situation has deteriorated again. Nelson pushed the frame on the bridge of his nose, and shouted, here comes the medicine. Hearing this movement, Rozinante, who was originally lifeless, immediately regained his energy, and quickly said, I'm much better, I don't need to take medicine anymore. Really? Seeing that he really spoke, Doflamingo's smile became brighter, and he looked at Mahabe and said, from today on, let Rozinante go around and have a look, but Mahabasis, after all, he has just recovered from a long illness, he is not in good health, you have to follow him closely and take good care of him. After Rozinante heard this, he felt relieved. If nothing else, this test is over, right? Doflamingo should have more trust in himself, and he can go out without reading what he said. Isn't it a kind of progress in trust? As everyone knows, the reason why Doflamingo arranged this way is to allow Rozinante to communicate more with the rest of the people. It doesn't matter if the information leaks. Anyway, there are no important secrets now. The key is to make Mahabas familiar with Rozinante's behavior and language communication. I don't know if Ida because Doflamingo and the others didn't dock anywhere in New World after they left the Fishmen Island, or is it because the intelligence capabilities of the Big Mom pirates are not as exaggerated as imagined? Anyway, after wandering in New World for more than a month, the new Flamingo has arrived at the port of Dressrosa. I didn't see a hair of the Big Mom pirates either. The ship docked at the pier of the port, and after lowering the ladder, Doflamingo walked down with a thoughtful face. Is this the New World base camp you chose? Why does it feel a bit small? Beckman muttered as he followed Doflamingo. Dressrosa is indeed not big. Judging from the scale of the island, the entire Dressrosa Island is a small island, and further down, it is a miniature island. That kind of island. Not to mention, the Greenbit Island next to Dressrosa is a miniature island. Little people live on it. In contrast, Alabasta is another extreme. The Senton Island where Alabasta is located is a famous supergiant island. It takes several days to go from one city to another. There are still a lot of boundless islands on the island. The desert shows the size of the island. From the perspective of scale, the whole country of Dressrosa is probably not as big as the capital Albana. However, it is small, but the location of Dressrosa is very good. It belongs to a transportation hub center of New World. In theory, a large number of ships can stop here for supplies. The rich routes can connect Dressrosa to New World. All over the world. In the original story, the reason why Doflamingo chose Dressrosa as his base camp in New World was because of the well-connected transportation hub. The same is true for Doflamingo at this time. Take Dressrosa, back to the North Com Belt. As long as you break through the waterway between Dressrosa and the North Com Belt, you can immediately connect with the layer North Blue. And with Dressrosa as the center, it can also expand its influence history towards the surrounding islands along the major routes. Definitely a great place. The small size of the country is not a problem, it can be solved, and it is not difficult to form an archipelagic country. What's more, there is Germa's Warhouse technology. After the judge is cleaned up, the Warhouse technology can be used to expand the entire Dressrosa. After that, it will be paired with a sea train to take over the islands of other surrounding countries. It's pretty good, isn't it? Hello, Dover? Dover. Seeing Doflamingo's distracted look, Beckman stepped forward and patted his arm. What are you thinking about? Doflamingo came back to his senses, and then said with a smile, I was thinking, should I write a letter to the Big Mom Pirates and tell them where we are? Isn't their efficiency too low? We're all in Dressrosa, and they haven't found us yet? Beckman rolled his eyes and ignored Doflamingo, who was always doing some tricks. Soon, people from the Donquixote family got off the ship, and the cadres got together in twos and threes to observe the situation in the port in Dressrosa. Senor quickly said, normally speaking, Dressrosa is located in the hub area of a New World. With its convenient transportation and other advantages, Dressrosa should be very prosperous, right? Why does this place feel like everyone is poor? First of all, there are not as many foreign ships on the pier as Senor imagined, and the people on the port are all looking lazy, gathering together in groups to bask in the sun, and the workers are in a panic. After leaving the port and entering the city of Dressrosa, this situation continued. There are only a few shops on the street that are open, and there are no customers yet. Many people's clothes show poverty, and there are many patches on the clothes and trousers. Maybe you just finished paying this year's heavenly gold. Beckman hesitated for a moment, then analyzed with Virgo beside him. When Virgo heard the reason, he couldn't help but nodded and said, it's very possible. Maybe it was just searched for a fortune this year, so it seems that this place is very poor? But don't tell me, although the citizens here are poor one by one, they seem to be very accustomed to this kind of life and rhythm, and no one is very angry or sad. On the contrary, you can often see idlers getting together, bragging and farting, laughing and joking. How happy. Arlong walked with Gladius. This guy curled his lips and said, I thought how good the human country on the sea is, but now it seems that it is similar to our Murloc Street, and far worse than the Fishmen Island. HMPH, it's a pity that Cervantes is gone. Otherwise you must know what prosperity is, Gladius said proudly. After finally finding a restaurant, everyone went in and ordered a lot of things, sat down and rested. Young master, is this place really valuable? Diamante couldn't help asking. Rarely does he question Doflamingo's decisions, but the way it goes today, really. Dressrosa is small and poor. More than 800 years ago, the ancestors of our Donquixote family started from here and became one of the 20 most powerful countries in the world, and finally became one of the 20 kings on Marie Joyce. Doflamingo said softly. According to the current rulers of Dressrosa, the Liku royal family, the reason why the Donquixote family was able to make Dressrosa prosperous back then was because they enslaved the slaves of the little humans to make money. There must be slavery. It goes without saying, but more than 800 years ago, the phenomenon of slavery was a very normal social phenomenon. According to the historical trajectory, the large-scale abolition of slave laws around the world took 200 to 300 years. The Tianlong Law Code of the world's official government, as the most popular law in the sea, officially abolished slavery more than 200 years ago. In this case, you say that the Donquixote family enslaved the little people more than 800 years ago. Doflamingo thinks it is unreasonable? The Nafarutali family of Alabasta enslaved hundreds of thousands of people in the desert to build the wonder city of Albana. According to some documents collected by O'Hara, during the construction of the entire capital of Albania, there were 2 slaves from the 3rd generation who died, and the difference was hundreds of thousands. Haven't you seen the royal family of Liku complaining about enslaved labor? Didn't you say the oldest country of mankind with a shy face? In the final analysis, this is still related to the basis of the rule. As the current royal family of Dressrosa, it is normal to black one black predecessor. If Dressrosa really can become one of the 20 kings only by enslaving the little people, then Doflamingo can only write a word for the little people. What the hell are you guys? The productivity is awesome. Obviously, enslaving the little people can only be said to be a fulcrum behind the prosperous economy of Dressrosa back then. There must be more reasons. It is impossible to say that it is not as good as enslaving the little people. Has it fallen into this weak country where people hate dogs? In the final analysis, the management ability of the Liku family is still not good. How about the Liku family? A golden spirit of uprightness has been passed down from generation to generation. Every generation of their kings is very honest, upright, kind, and tolerant. From the perspective of these personal characters, these kings are undoubtedly good kings. But it is precisely because of these characters that the economic decline of Dressrosa is very serious in the end. Because the kings of the past dynasties, they have used various methods to prohibit smugglers, contraband dealers, arms dealers and other groups that roam the grey and black border, ships of other forces dock, replenish and operate at Dressrosa. From a legal point of view, this is a very correct thing. If you want to do this in a certain country in East Blue, then it must be no problem, but this is New World. How many people in the New World have nothing to do with these things? The scale of upstream and downstream affiliates generated by these groups is also very large. For example, if you prevent smugglers from coming, many chambers of commerce will also not come. Why come? You can't buy goods at low prices. Small country with few people, and no special products. Why should I come to see the scenery of your Dressrosa? How much is it worth? Not only this aspect, but also many other factors of integrity and justice, which caused Dressrosa to be rejected by New World people in every aspect. Good guy, everyone is the same, but if you insist on decorating yourself with incomparable innocence, that is to make it clear that we can't play together? Then stop playing. So far, Dressrosa's economy has continued to decline. Even if it occupies one of the best transportation hubs in the New World, it has not been able to exert its advantages. In addition to these, the Liku royal family is also an annoying existence in the eyes of the world government. If you open the World Summit together, your Liku royal family will ask us to reduce this labor and cancel that tax. Is this appropriate? Is the World Summit open to discuss these? It is to discuss how everyone can maximize their interests, how to make more money, how to unite the royal families of various countries tightly, and to exploit those troublemakers. You always talking from the standpoint of unruly people. What king are you? Therefore, many franchised royal families can't understand Dressrosa, let alone the world government. So Dressrosa was mixed up like this dog, and the world government should find a way to help, but in the end it didn't. They even want to kick them out of the franchise country, but considering that Dressrosa is one of the legal system of the 20 kings after all, it is of great significance to the world's government. It's really strange that they can still pay a huge amount of gold in the sky every year. The world's official government is not easy to sell. In the end, although they are disgusting, they do not have the ability to actually endanger the government of the world. In the end, Marie Joyce let Dressrosa go. Just treat them as clowns, don't worry about it. But everything has its pros and cons. You can see that people in Dressrosa in New World hate dogs, and the poor jingle. But because of this, there are no evil parties eyeing here. After all, going back and forth, the oil and water that can be knocked out in Dressrosa may not be enough for my own expenses on supplies. So let alone that Dressrosa is really a rare and safe country in the New World. Perhaps it is also because of this that the people on this island still think it is quite good. Although we are poor, no one will rob us. Dressrosa, King's Heights. This is the ruling center of the Liku royal family in the palace of Dressrosa. But in fact, this castle has a history of nearly 1,000 years. As early as more than 800 years ago, it was the former residence of the Donquixote family. Later the Donquixote family moved to Marie Joyce, and this place was given to the Lijun royal family. Liku kings of all dynasties were very upright and honest people, so the castle has been passed down to this day. Except for a few renovations, it has not been touched much. At this time, Liku Dald-e was in the castle, handling his own state affairs. Speaking of major national affairs, in fact, there will be basically no major problems in the entire Dressrosa, but King Liku is very diligent, so he will personally intervene in major and minor matters, let alone, because of this, he is very popular. Zhang San and Li Si quarreled on the street because of some trivial matters, and it was very likely that King Liku would come to mediate in person. Do you think such a king can be unpopular? There is still a big gap in the gold in the sky next year. We have to find a way to make up for it. King Liku looked at the financial statement in his hand and muttered a few words in embarrassment. The state's finances can't satisfy the money in the sky, so that King Liku has to subsidize it from his own pocket every year. I don't know how this guy can get enough money. Just when King Liku was thinking about how to solve the gold gap in the sky next year, there was a burst of footsteps outside his government affairs hall. Then, Cyrus, who was recruited by him last year and became the captain of the Dressrosa Palace Guard, walked in. King Liku felt that the walking pace of Cyrus today was a little stiff, but he didn't think too much about it. He just thought it was because this guy had been exercising too much and was a little tired. Cyrus? What's the matter? King Liku asked. Cyrus' mouth wanted to move, but it seemed to be sealed, and his eyes were terrified. At this moment, several figures walked out from behind him again, and the leader was none other than Doflamingo. If someone with good eyesight looked carefully, he would find that Doflamingo's black gemstone tail ring was scattering some undetectable thin lines, and these thin lines finally landed on Cyrus' body. Thank you for leading the way. Doflamingo walked into the government affairs hall and said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, Cyrus seemed to have returned to normal. He rolled on the ground and quickly stood in front of Doflamingo and the others. He pulled out the long knife from his waist and pointed it forward and shouted loudly, "Your Majesty, go, these guys are pirates." Pirate. King Liku was startled, but he didn't leave. Although he is a bit upright, he is not stupid. Judging from the situation of Cyrus just now, he is not a match for these people at all. In the current situation, he can't run very far. And it seems that these pirates didn't burn, kill and loot as soon as they came up. It seems that they have something to tell him. What's more, our Dressrosa has nothing to grab. The treasure house of my palace has been emptied to make up for this year's heavenly gold. Even if you kill me, you have no money. Thinking of this, King Liku quickly calmed down and said, "Several. Our Dressrosa's wealth is not much, but as long as you don't hurt Dressrosa, I will find a way." Before he finished speaking, Doflamingo naturally walked past Cyrus. On the other hand, Cyrus was covered in cold sweat, his muscles were trembling constantly, as if he wanted to move himself, but, on the other hand, Doflamingo's aura, which was like a peerless beast, just pressed on him tightly, making him unable to move. Master your body. The gap is too big. Even though Cyrus is the strongest gladiator in the Dressrosa arena who can win 3,000 consecutive victories, he is still unable to move when facing Doflamingo. Liku doled it's the first time we meet, and I haven't introduced myself yet. Doflamingo walked out of the shadow of the hall and came in front of King Liku. King Liku looked at Doflamingo's tall body, and after a moment of trance, he exclaimed, "7 warlords of the sea." The news that Doflamingo is 7 warlords of the sea has already been spread all over the world along with newspapers. Dressrosa is not a closed place, so King Liku has read the newspapers. It seems that you know me. So to make a long story short, the Liku royal family has stolen the Dressrosa throne for more than 800 years, and it's time to return the crown to me. Doflamingo said softly. Return it to you. King Liku was a little confused. Since you know that I am 7 warlords of the sea, you should also know my name, right? Doflamingo smiled. Don Quixote a Doflamingo, King Liku murmured, and then he was shocked, Don Quixote. But the shock was only for a moment, and he quickly retorted, "Impossible. The Don Quixote family moved to Marie Joy's, and they are already world nobles, you. Don't be suspicious. I am the descendant of the 20 kings, the pure blood of the Don Quixote family," Doflamingo said without hesitation. Even so, what else did we Likuo want to argue back then? Doflamingo patted him on the shoulder lightly and said, "Excuse me for asking a question first. What are the selection criteria for 7 warlords of the sea?" "It has catastrophic destructive power, and a huge combat power that rivals the country," King Liku responded instinctively. This is indeed one of the selection conditions for 7 warlords of the sea, and it can also be said to be the first condition. After he said this, he was stunned for a moment, and then Doflamingo said with a gentle smile, "That's right, then there is no need to look for any reason. There are only 2 choices before you. The first one, I will Dressrosa will completely conquer by force. At that time, the whole country will be caught in the flames of war. I will destroy everything in this country, because they cannot be used by me. The second is that you abdicate and give the throne to me. In this case, I am the king of Dressrosa. As a king, I will protect my people, and you are one of them. Dressrosa is a member of the franchise country of the world government, you do this." Wang Liku just wanted to say something, but when the words came to his lips, he seemed to realize some problems and couldn't continue. Fur. Doflamingo smiled evilly and said, 7 Warlords of the Sea is also part of the world government. As 7 Warlords of the Sea, I enjoy extrajudicial immunity. All my piracy actions will be supported by local law and rationality, and the same is true for piracy-counting countries. Speaking of this, Doflamingo looked around the hall, and said softly, "What's more, you don't know what kind of role the Liku royal family is in the eyes of the world's government, do you?" As soon as Doflamingo finished speaking, there was another burst of commotion outside the hall. Then, it was Virgo, Gladius and others who brought all the family members of the royal family up. King Liku has no money and is very upright, so there is only one princess who gave birth to 2 daughters. At this time, the daughters are one big and one small. The youngest one looks like 9 or 10 years old, and the older one is already a slim girl, about 15 or 16 years old. There is no doubt that this is Scarlet and Violet. Father. Scarlet looked at her father in panic. You. King Liku also had a look of shock and anger. As you can see, if you don't agree, I will kill all your wives and daughters first, and then start from the nobles and ministers of this country, and go down layer by layer until the last civilian is also killed, Doflamingo said with a very relaxed tone, but his eyes were indifferent. After saying this, he rummaged around on the table, picked up a piece of paper and said, "Let me see, the population of Dressrosa this year is 220,000. In terms of level, the population is really thin. Then, under King Liku's shocked gaze, Doflamingo looked at Virgo and asked, "Speaking of which, how many people did I kill in Cervantes?" Virgo. There is no precise number. According to the figures released by Marine later, it is about 100,000 people. Virgo responded calmly. No wonder I always feel that something is missing. The 220,000 people in Dressrosa should be able to satisfy my desire to kill. Doflamingo nodded calmly. Hearing these words, King Liku suddenly recalled some information recorded there when he read the materials of 7 Warlords of the Sea. Yes, this guy named Doflamingo is a real butcher who slaughtered 100,000 people in the North Blue. He didn't open his mouth, his expression was very complicated and hesitant, and his princess, who seemed to understand the general situation, was silent at the side and didn't speak. Scarlet was not an ignorant guy. Looking at this scene, she was also silent. Violet, seeing that everyone is silent, she dare not speak. Doflamingo didn't urge anything. He looked at the setting sun outside the window, and in a few minutes, the sun would sink below the sea level. Before the sunset, you need to give me the answer. After Doflamingo finished speaking, he turned around and walked to little Violet's side. Kneeling down and pinching her soft little face, Doflamingo said with a smile, "What a lovely little girl, do you want to be my princess?" After hearing this, King Liku said angrily, "She is only 9 years old, Doflamingo. In order to better stabilize my ruling foundation, this is also a necessary choice. If you think Violet is too young, Scarlet is also fine, or even your wife, I don't mind, but I think you are not willing to give up your wife to me, and Princess Scarlet seems to have a lover too," Doflamingo said wickedly. Soon, the setting sun sank into the sea, and the sky quickly dimmed. And Doflamingo also stood up, and slowly pulled out the heart from his waist. A icy cold light shone on King Liku's eyes. "Surrender or destroy, it's time to give the answer," Liku doled Doflamingo said softly in a cold tone. At this time, Doflamingo is ready. Once King Liku refuses, he will mercilessly kill all the members of the Liku family.